What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit POD your home for all of the latest and greatest Detroit Lions news. I am your host, Miko. You can find me over at Twitter at the Miko Scott. Joined once again by my amazing co-host. First and foremost, we have your senior editor over at prideofdetroit.com, Ryan Matthews at Ryan underscore POD. Ryan, we are a few days away from actual Lions football. How are you feeling?
I'm ready. I'm pumped. I'm excited. Week one of college football was a good way to kick things off. Like I'm officially in football mode. The weather has changed. It's a little bit cooler outside. You can
Yep.
you can wear a sweatshirt or a hoodie with some shorts and you're nice and comfy. Feels good, man. Feels good to be back.
Awesome. Also joining us today is your editor-in-chief over at PrideOfDetroit.com, Jeremy Reisman at Detroit Online over on Twitter. Jeremy, if you had to describe the season as a steak, how would you describe the upcoming NFL season for you and your excitement for the Detroit Lions?
This is very easy, Miko, because obviously football season is the best of all seasons, and the best way to enjoy your steak is medium rare, and there are no other alternatives. So medium rare is the answer, and I would also encourage, while I'm offering steak advice, never get takeout steak, just as a general rule of thumb.
It is a lesson that I have had to learn the hard way. The silver lining in that though is that I'm not sick. All right. But yes, that is sage advice. I had probably should have considered that before I'd ordered dinner last night. But either way, we're in good spirits. We're riding high right now. And yeah, today we're going to be jumping into our season preview for the Detroit Lions. We're going to talk about some of the biggest questions facing the offense as well as some of the biggest questions facing the defense. And guys, I don't know if you probably heard, I don't know, there was a little bit of news that broke, just minor, nothing serious, but a trade happened that may impact the NFC North. So we're definitely going to get into that as well. Throughout this conversation. So let's go ahead and dive right in and kick things off talking about some of the biggest questions facing this offense. And Jeremy, when I think about this offense, it kind of does start with the guy at the top or near the top in Johnny Morton, who I think a lot of fans would agree has a lot of pressure on him going into this season. How can he best meet expectations in his as his first as the OC in his first season in Detroit? How do you think that's actually going to kind of play out?
Rely on your playmakers, right? Put the ball in your playmakers' hands. He can't physically do that for the team, but he can certainly set them up for that sort of success. And the great news is that he has so many options and that he's already familiar with most of these options because most of them were around in 2022 when he was here. So I get, I get the consternation, right? You never really know an OC how an OC is going to work out. It doesn't necessarily matter if it's already their scheme or not. And I think the biggest question with him is not like, okay, what's this offense going to look like? It's how are you going to manage it on game day? How are you going to call plays? How are you going to set the defense up in the first quarter for something that you do in the fourth quarter, or set a defense up for something that you show in week 2, and then you pull the rug out from underneath them in week 10? Those are the things that I'm still waiting to see with Johnny Morton. But man, the more and more I continue to hear about the people around him, the more and more I'm convinced that there should be less and less to be worried about. Nothing's going to be certain until we see him go out there. But even the article by Dave Burkett this week, where it was like, oh, Dan Campbell called him while John Morton was out on Cabo. During that same trip, you have Sean Payton like courting him there. He's in Cabo in a Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford type of way. And then right after he hangs up the phone with Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson's online too. Like, this is a guy that has a ton of respect around the league. And yes, those are three guys who have been very close to him and know him, but that's kind of the point. The people that know him trust him and trust him into big roles. And yes, this is a massive role. He's in charge of one of the better offenses in football, but I think of all the people that could have this job, he certainly seems like one that is proven to be trusted by those that know him.
Yeah. And I'm certainly paraphrasing, but something he said when he first got the job has kind of just stuck with me all offseason long. And to paraphrase, it was something along the lines of like, this offense is pretty turnkey. Like you said, Jeremy, rely on your playmakers. Are you gonna are you gonna shake up the world? Are you gonna, you know, throw out the old playbook and bring in an entirely brand new one just because you're John Morton and you want to put your imprint on this. No, I don't think so. But I think what's really interesting, and you also kind of touch on this, Jeremy, and it's going to happen early, right? Like you have Green Bay in week 1, you have Chicago in week 2. If you're starting to plant those seeds, and that's something I think Ben Johnson was really good at. Like if you look past the trick plays, if you look past, some of the ancillary stuff, like setting teams up, right? Putting your offense in looks and giving defenses eye candy, so to speak, that you're going to take advantage of maybe a quarter from now, maybe later in that same drive, maybe like you said, Jeremy, down the road when you play the Bears again or when you play the Packers again. And the other thing that, and again, it's just little procedural things, but he's going to be up in the booth, right? And Dan Campbell talked about that and how that's different than Ben Johnson and how he's not concerned about it because Morton thinks he can see things best up there. They still have guys on the sideline like Scotty, Tashard Choice, like those guys will still be down on the field, right? Yeah, Shaw will be down there as well. So you have a presence down there. Miko, for me, I just want to know how balanced this offense will continue to be. And I don't know if it's going to stay that way, if it's going to evolve, if it's going to change, if it's going to be a little fungible, but like you had about as balanced as an offense as you possibly could have had last year. The Lions had 551 pass attempts to 534 rushing attempts. That's about as balanced as it gets. So I think that's my biggest question on a macro level is he going to commit a little bit more to the run? Is he going to be maybe a little more pass happy? I don't know. It's interesting to pay attention to, though.
I think the answer to that question, though, lies into what both you and Jeremy both kind of touched on, which is the familiarity that he has with Dan Campbell. Because as much as we're like, as fans, we're going to put a lot of the like blame or credit on the success of this offense on Johnny Mo. Like that's just the way that we're going to look at things blanketly. But at the end of the day, Jeremy, I feel like in the first few weeks, like we're going to get a lot of proof in terms of like we've always said, like, hey, Dan has way more to do with the success of this offense than he gets credit for. And I think in these first couple weeks, we're going to see that because that balance that you're talking about, Ryan, like I think that comes from Dan Campbell first and foremost. Dan wants to have a balanced attack. Dan has much more of a calculated mind, in my opinion, in how he wants this offense to function and how he wants this offense to take advantage of what the opposing defense is doing. So, Jeremy, like I said, like I think within these first couple weeks, we're really going to get an idea of literally how much Dan has to do with the success of this offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think philosophically this team is willing to do anything, right? We hear it from Dan all the time. He's like, yeah, it starts up front and hood under the engine, or the engine under the hood is the offensive line and defensive line, things like that. But he'll also go out there and say, well, it depends on the week. If we're facing a really good pass rusher and a team that's missing their best nose tackle now, maybe we'll run the ball 60 times. If it's the inverse, maybe we'll throw it 60 times. I'm not talking about any team specifically. I'm just throwing examples out there.
Right. You're talking about Tampa Bay week 2 last year, right?
that's right. But I think philosophically speaking, I don't think a lot is necessarily going to change. Schematically, I don't think a lot is going to change because of the familiarity, because of the fact that Dan Campbell trusts this man who was part of the implementation in 2022, because your run game coordinator is Hank Fraley, a guy who has kind of been the run game coordinator for the past couple of years anyways, because everything they do starts with that offensive line. And then your pass game coordinator is David Shaw, but you also have a guy like Scotty Montgomery who is now, moved from running backs to wide receivers, so he has a hand in the pass game as well. So I just think some of this offensive coordinator stuff is getting overblown. To me, again, it all just comes back to how do you call plays, and that's something that we're just going to have to figure out.
Ryan, let's move it over to the run game that Jeremy kind of touched on. In regards to having Hank Fraley there and him being in charge of the run game, and as far as the run game coordinator, I think one question that we could see in terms of maybe there possibly being a shakeup is how the Lions choose to use Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Last year we got a lot of Jahmyr Gibbs because David Montgomery, had to deal with some injuries, and that offered him a lot more, no pun intended, a lot more running room as the lead back. Do you foresee that kind of staying the same, or how do you kind of see that usage between those two backs kind of shaking out?
Well, we can touch on Jeremy's favorite subject is 21 personnel. Are we going to see more David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs on the field? And then, you know, then it's not so much box score watching about attempts. It's looking at snap usage. But, in 2023, Montgomery was the lead guy in Gibbs' rookie season. Like you said, Miko, with some of the injuries that David dealt with in last season, you have Jahmyr Gibbs' ascension, and that combined, I think by the time the season was wrapping up, I think a lot of people were leaning a lot more like Jahmyr Gibbs needs to be on the field way more often than David Montgomery needs to be on the field. And that obviously coincided with his injury and then, coming back for the playoff game and everything. So really, I think it comes back to what Jeremy said, though. It's going to be situational, right? Like, I think that if there's an opportunity that presents itself that they want to run between the tackles and they want to lean on that part of their identity, you're going to see David Montgomery get anywhere between 18 and 20 touches. And Jahmyr Gibbs fantasy owners will just be upset, right, Jeremy?
They will, because fantasy owners are always upset about something. But
I'll be pretty happy. I'll be fine. As a Jahmyr Gibbs, fantasy football player owner, I'll be fine.
Here's where I think you might see a little change that is certainly not nothing. So David Montgomery played in 14 games last year during the regular season. How many of those did you think he started?
All of them.
That's correct. He started 14 out of 14. Gibbs, throughout that time, actually had one start as well, which, if you don't know, they calculate starts just by who's literally the first guy out there in the very first play of the day. So during one of those 14 games, they had both guys out there on the first play.
In theory, you could play 17 snaps and start all the games.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
I think that changes this year. I think you're going to see Jahmyr Gibbs out there to start the game pretty often. Not every week, like you said. If the game plan is more physical, you need the more physical back, you're going to see David Montgomery out there. But I think the default this year turns to Jahmyr Gibbs setting the tone for a game. And I think he's capable of it. Yes, he's not as physical. Yes, I still think the Lions' main identity is to grind teams out and tire them out by the fourth quarter. We heard Roy Lopez talking about that a couple weeks ago. But I think Jahmyr Gibbs has earned a spot, and I think he's a physical enough back too, where he can wear teams out by the end of the first half, by the start of the second half, by the start of the fourth quarter. And so I still think it's going to be, not a 50-50 split, but like what was maybe a 60-40 split. Could that turn more to like a 70-30 or a 65-35? Like I do think we're kind of headed in that direction. Yeah.
This once again feels like something where the fan base may want one thing in terms of wanting Ja to just have way more snaps and get, outpace Monty by a significant margin. And it's still not necessarily turn out that way, because I think one of the things that we oftentimes lose track of in our hype for certain players is like, hey, the reason Jahmyr is able to be so successful is because David's there, because David is wearing on the opposing defensive line. It is a true 1-2 punch. And if you start to just lean on one punch more than the other, teams will start to key on that, right, Ryan? And then all of a sudden you find yourself in a situation where people are going to be like, hey, why isn't the run game as successful? Well, maybe because you messed with the formula.
Yeah. And the Lions told you everything you needed to know about how they felt about David Montgomery last year when they gave him an in-season 2-year, almost $19 million extension. So David Montgomery is, again, essential to this offense's identity, because that identity it's malleable, right? It can change. And that's what Jeremy's kind of pointing out. Jahmyr Gibbs can wear you out too, just by running by you and having to chase him around. And maybe that's a way that they end games. Maybe they lean on David Montgomery and that physicality at the end of games, and they start with Ja just as easily as they could set the tone with David. And then once you're tired and gassed, there comes your right hook, Jahmyr Gibbs. So that's the most exciting thing I think about this offense.
Yeah.
Like bar none, period, is their ability to be different and multiple in the run game. And that'll make you a winner in the NFL.
And I'm glad that Miko brought up, like, as much as I think like things are going to tilt a little bit more in Jahmyr Gibbs' favor, there is a limit to that. They aren't going to go 80-20. They aren't going to go 90-10, whatever. Part of that is because they value both players. The other part of that is I think they learned a lesson last year. And Dan Kimball even talked about it a little bit, how maybe our goal doesn't necessarily need to be 1 seed. maybe our goal should just be get in and make sure we're playing our best football at the end of the year. And in order to do that, you can't wear out one of your running backs. You lose too much tread on the tire during the season. You want to make sure both those guys are healthy and still, at whatever percentage you can physically possibly be at the end of a very grinding 4-month season. So yeah, as much as I think Gibbs is going to get more this year, I think 70-30 is probably the absolute maximum they would go, and that even seems a little high.
Speaking of, again, like splitting in terms of like in the case of Ja and Monty, it is a case of snaps and things of that nature. If we move over to the passing game, I think we're talking about a difference of like targets and usage in terms of like who becomes a bigger deal in the passing game offense. Amon-Ra St. Brown is still wide receiver one, and he will continue to like get his number of targets no matter what. But I think, Jeremy, there is an interesting conversation to be had when we talk about Jameson Williams and Sam Laporta and who we think like can make a bigger case for themselves or make a better case for themselves for getting an extension this offseason. I know like at times it feels like having JMO can be a luxury, but if everything that we've seen and heard about JMO comes to fruition, like he might be the one to kind of take the lead when it comes down to the difference between him and Sam, right?
Yeah, I certainly hope this doesn't come down to an either or situation for the Lions. It very well could. Maybe it doesn't though. It's really tough because both of those guys are valuable in different ways, but a lot in the same ways too, right? Both those guys are active in the run game. Obviously, I think Sam Laporta is a little bit more integral to being, a force as a run blocker and something that he's improved upon. But JMO doesn't shy away from that stuff either, and he's the reason that a Jahmyr Gibbs run can go from 15 yards to 70. So both those guys obviously are active in the run game. We know what they can do in the passing game. And both have like gotten a fair amount of hype. I would say JMO has gotten the load of it because he's an exciting, first round pick, top 12 pick, whatever it was, that has seen his production explode. But I don't want people to forget how important Sam Laporta is to this team either. We talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown being kind of the security blanket for Jared Goff, but St. Brown is just as much that guy. And so I don't know. I don't like picking. I'm glad it's not my job to pick between the two, but I guess the soapbox I'm standing on right now is don't forget about Sam Laporta. Any like feeling that he, maybe his rookie year was a little bit of a, I don't know, lightning in a bottle, took a step back in year two. I think all that's nonsense. I think he's going to maintain and continue to establish himself as a top 5 tight end in this league.
Yeah, and I'll apologize for framing it that way. It doesn't have to be an either or situation, but it kind of does feel like it might be trending in that direction, and not just like JMO or him, but it might be like Laporta and Branch, and you can take care of both those guys, and that might come at the expense of having to spend money on Jameson Williams. I do think the most interesting thing that John Morton has on his plate is that while he was here in 2022, Jameson Williams wasn't a part of the game plan for the most part of that season. And now you have Jameson Williams, and who's one of the first people that, John Morton hyped up in his opening press conference was talking about Jameson Williams and the opportunities that he can provide an offensive coordinator in terms of calling the plays. So that's mighty intriguing. And I'm there with you, Jeremy, in the sense that Laporta, while he took a step back in terms of volume, his efficiency improved. He became a more efficient guy. He did more with less targets. He also dealt with the injury too early in the season. He had that ankle stuff, and I'm pretty sure he had off-season surgery last year too.
That's right, yeah.
If I'm remembering that correctly. So it's the old adage of the guy got all off-season to rest and recover. He didn't even go to tight end university, right? Because he was busy getting married and hanging out with the new Pope and everything.
Yeah, blessed by the Pope. Let's not forget that factor. I don't know how is that like plus 50 yards for the season, 100.
I don't know. It's something, but yeah. So the important thing again to circle back to, we keep on talking about the embarrassment of riches. We're like, oh man, who should get more carries? James, Jahmyr Gibbs or David Montgomery? Who's going to be more explosive in the pass game? I don't know. These are great problems to have.
It's even better when you have like, both of those players on your fantasy team. Not saying that anybody on this podcast has both a Sam Laporta and a Jahmyr Gibbs, but I'm just saying, in case you do, you might have that wealth of riches at your disposal this fantasy football season. But I agree with both of you. I don't think it's necessarily an either or. I think in the same way we talk about Monty and Job being like a week by week, like pick your poison type of situation. The same is going to be true for the passing attack. One week it's going to be heavy probably on Amon-Ra St. Brown. The next week it might be a heavy dose of Jameson Williams. The following week or 2 or 3 weeks later, it could be Sam Laporta. It could even possibly be the explosion of a rookie wide receiver in Isaac TeSlaa, who could maybe, start to get more opportunities ever since the Lions traded away Tim Patrick to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Ryan, they've kind of at least cracked the door open to at least the possibility of us seeing a little bit more TeSlaa this upcoming season. What are your expectations for the young rookie as the season kind of is looming here?
Well, they've changed drastically over the past
Week.
7 to 8 weeks. I think the most interesting development is his ascension and the team moving on from even having Tim Patrick as a security blanket. It wasn't going to cost you much. The Lions didn't even keep 53 players, right? Because the standard is the standard. I think that speaks volumes about how much they trust Isaac TeSlaa from the jump. Now, I do want to circle back to one of my favorite Detroit Lions. They also love Khalif Raymond, and they trust Khalif Raymond to do a lot too. So you're not throwing all the veterans out of the room. You still have one Jeremy and Khalif Raymond. So they still have the afforded opportunity to bring him along as quote unquote slowly as he needs to be brought along. But trading Tim Patrick and shrinking that room, and he clearly plays a role. I think that speaks volumes about how much they trust the guy and maybe even how early on they'll trust him as well.
Yeah, it was interesting. Dan Campbell was asked today about all the rookies and all the young players and where their roles might be this season. And with TeSlaa, he didn't really give a huge endorsement for. It wasn't either. I would say it was net neutral. Like, it wasn't negative, it wasn't positive. He says, and then TeSlaa, we'll find a place for him where we feel like we can use him. Certainly special teams, we see him playing too. So it was like, don't worry, he'll play special teams, and then we'll find something for him. Which I think to me, my read on that is, don't forget about Khalif Raymond. Like, Khalif Raymond is probably your week one quote unquote starter. I do think TeSlaa has a sub package in week one though. I do think he has 5 to 10 plays on offense, and I do expect that to pretty drastically increase as the season goes on, and he builds that trust with Goff, he builds that trust with John Morton, he builds that trust with Dan Campbell. And maybe that role early on is red zone. We certainly know he can catch a contested ball from Kyle Allen, and I have to imagine Jared Goff can put it in somewhere where he can get it too. So, if you're already looking at some player props or whatever, a red zone touchdown for Isaac TeSlaa, I think could very well happen early on in the season.
You have to get the FanDuel odds on that. Miko, I want to ask you a question. Tim Patrick had 44 targets last season in 16 games. Khalif Raymond only played 12, but only had 22 targets. So half of the target share that Tim Patrick had. How do those 66 targets, give or take a few, get divided up between Khalif Raymond and Isaac TeSlaa?
I think it's going to be a slow build. I think kind of like what Jeremy was saying. I think the beauty of having the wealth of riches that you have on this offense is that you don't have to expect an Isaac TeSlaa to, immediately fill those 44, right? I think initially it'll probably be a good amount of Khalif, and I wouldn't be surprised by the end of the season if it's a little more even. I won't say 50-50, but I'll go 60-40 Khalif.
Okay.
Still kind of getting more of those targets, because I think at the minimum of what you can expect from Isaac TeSlaa in his rookie season is being that red zone target. And if you're getting within those, those 20 yards to the end zone, The fact that you don't have to just run a bunch of crossers or, things like that, you can throw a few more jump balls. You're living good in that area. Granted, you may have to like compete with Ja on his, Texas routes because that's also unstoppable once you get within the 20.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, looking at some of the other players that got targets, is Jared Goff going to get a target? We don't know. That remains to be
I hope
seen.
so.
Who's going to get Allen Robinson 7 targets? Let's figure that out
Mm.
right now. Okay. So,
Brock Wright, Sione Baki. I don't know.
By the way, our live chat shout out to Jason Sarnick says to Slaw anytime touchdown is plus 475 right now, according to DraftKings. Not sponsored, but just throwing it out there.
there's the line.
All right, guys, let's move it over to what for a long time has been the driving force for this offense, which has been the offensive line. And obviously we've talked about it up and down about the changes and the unknown when it comes to this group in regards to, having two new starters, one former starter now playing a new position. Um, which offensive lineman, when you look at that group as a whole, is the most key for them staying formidable in 2025, for them to still remain one of the top units going into the season? Jeremy, who do you kind of zero in on?
I mean, probably Graham still. It's the center. It's replacing Frank Ragnow. I want to say it's one of the young players, and it probably. I mean, they obviously have a ginormous impact on how whether this succeeds or not. But it all kind of starts at center. It all starts about getting the team in the right protection in the first place, something that Frank Ragnow was just so absolutely elite at. And especially when you have someone like Minnesota in your division, it's so essential to have that piece to the puzzle. So it's going to be on Graham, and he's going to have rookies, essentially rookies, on both sides of his shoulders, right? Like those, it's going to be on him to make sure he's communicating well with both those players. It's going to be on him to make sure they know their assignments well. They can feel that veteran presence. It's going to be on him to build chemistry with the two most novice guys on the starting lineup. So I think it all boils down to Graham. I think this has gone from a season in which he could have been a reserve to where he might be the most important offensive lineman on the team.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, Ryan, like it feels like Graham has been the layup. Like as far as like if you're worried about a concern, like he's the first name that comes up. Is there any room in your mind where like it's a Tate Ratledge, where it is a Christian Mahogany, that like an argument could be made that like no, they're a little bit more pivotal even to what Graham could possibly bring this year?
I think so. But my answer is Penei Sewell. Like Penei Sewell just has to be an absolute unit, has to be the dude that we all have come to know him as. If he is the guy, I've seen enough other offensive lines that have been kind of devoid of talent. I mean, the 49ers come to mind, right? Like they have players, right? But then they had Trent Williams, and Trent Williams takes that thing from good to, oh my gosh, they're incredible, right? I think Penei Sewell has that kind of pull. Penei Sewell is that kind of a player where maybe he helps the transition for a Tate Ratledge who's playing right next to him, brings him along in a way that, if you don't have a guy over there like Penei Sewell, then yeah, maybe you do circle Tate Ratledge and you're like, well, this is the rookie. A complete unknown. The only thing we have are 12, 14 snaps he played against the Atlanta Falcons in Georgia. So I think that Jeremy's answer is the first one that comes to mind, and I think Graham is the most important piece of the offensive line for all the reasons that he stated. I do think, though, that Penei Sewell being an all-pro tackle is the most important thing for this team to just still be good offensively.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think in terms of like who needs to be at their best, it's Panay. But I think if we were just framing it as like who do you have the biggest question mark about, like that could be the biggest wild card, it is Graham in that sense, just because like for me personally, I which Graham am I getting? And I understand like he's played left guard last year, he played right guard before, he played great at right guard, not as good left guard. Now we're getting center. And so do we get like a happy middle between those two, or is he more like it ideally he's leaning more towards playing at the same level he did at right guard, Jeremy? And if that can happen, I think the rest of this offensive line will figure it out and they'll still be fairly solid.
Yeah. And I mean, there were a lot of things going on last year, right? Graham just wasn't comfortable at left guard. He admitted as much this year. Wasn't as happy at left guard. He's dealing with an injury, pretty significant injury. I think did it turn out to be a high ankle sprain or something. Justin Rogers, I think, reported on it.
I think so.
So there are a lot of things working against him last year. It's been a little bit since he was a regular center, so I think it's fair to expect a little bit amount of rust there. But based on, if the question is more, where's the biggest concern on the offensive line, I think I would slide to Ratledge, mostly because I saw Christian Mahogany in training camp, and even though that dude only started 2 games last year, he looks great right now. And because some of the question marks about Graham, I think, can be explained away by playing a position he didn't like or was comfortable at and some of the injury stuff, Ratledge remains the one where it's just like, I don't know how this is going to go. We didn't see a ton of him, like you said, in the preseason. I saw him in training camp plenty, but if there was a position where there was the most like miscommunications that I noticed, guy not getting to the second level, the chemistry not quite being there, it was understandably there, right? It's a guy that hasn't been here for the past at least 12 months. And so that's going to have the most progress as the season goes on. And I asked Dan Campbell about it today, and he said, listen, they've already come a long way. But, and this is the good news, there's a long way to go, and they're going to get there. And so it's not going to look perfect in week 1. There are going to be some MAs, most likely from Tate, probably from some other guys on that line too, because it happens. But yeah, this remains like the biggest question for the entire offense, right? How quickly is this going to look even, 90% of what it looked like last year? Because it needs to get there. Otherwise, this offense is going to have some troubles that they didn't have in previous years.
Let's put a bow on this segment with some rapid fire, right? And I'm talking like, let's just talk ceiling and floor, just really quick, kind of like what kind of comes to mind, Jeremy, when you think about the ceiling for this team, which player is the most important for them reaching that ceiling? And then if they don't reach that and they end up hitting the floor, why do you think they ended up hitting the floor?
Well, first of all, I would set the ceiling first in the NFL in offense again. Like that, this is a roster capable of doing that again. No question in my mind. And this is going to be a chalk answer, but it revolves around Jared Goff, because part of the offensive line getting in the right protection thing, part of that's on him. Part of it is making sure he's continuing not to turn the ball over and then delivering good balls. So, I mean, Jared Goff remains the guy that this is all built around. And it's built around him for a particular reason, because they believed he can handle all of the pre-snap stuff. They believe he can handle all the in-breaking routes and the precise passes that this offense requires, the precision overall that it requires, not just in passing, but in footwork and the way he's handing the ball off. All those things are in the way he's pretending to stumble, right? Like all that sort of stuff. It starts with Jared Goff. If it doesn't go well, it's going to be partially on him for sure. If not, it's going to be on the offensive line. I like that's the only thing that's maybe out of his control that could sink the ship. If he has to get off his spot, if he has to scramble, he is not at his best. He's not bad against pressure, but he's bad against having to move, right? That is something I think we can all agree. He can get rid of the ball quick if he needs to. That's kind of his superpower when it comes to pressure, but if he continuously has to move from his spot, if the run game isn't there and it's continually forcing third and longs, it's going to make his job harder. So that's where I kind of view the axis of this. And if you wanted me to talk about floor, I still think this is a top 10 offense at its worst.
Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, and finished first in scoring. I believe they finished third in offensive DVOA. I think both those are very much on the table, like Jeremy said. It hinges on the offensive line. I know it's a bit of a cop-out because I know you asked for a player, Miko, but John Morton. I think, again, like the most pressure is on John Morton because we saw it work with Jared Goff for years, plural. It worked. And while the offensive line has experienced some turnaround and some changing of faces, you still have Hank Fraley. You still have, Jared Goff and all these playmakers we just ogled over for so long. John Morton is what can lead the Lions to maybe hitting their floor, I think. combination of John Morton and the offensive line just not being up to snuff for the reasons that Jeremy listed about that, how that impacts Jared Goff. So I think their floor is maybe closer to league average, like 14, 15, 16 in that range. But I know on the other side of this show, when we get to the second segment, like that even might be fine.
I was gonna say I'm probably there with you in regards to what I think the floor of this team could possibly be, which is like average, right? Top 15 type of offense in the league. Um, and I think in terms of their ceiling, this is still a top three offense in my opinion. I'm leaving myself room because what we saw last year was just simply incredible. And I don't want to simply say like it's absolutely going to be that, but I do think they can still be one of the three best offenses in the NFL, bar none. And I think that largely hinges on Jahmyr Gibbs, in my opinion. Jeremy, I see what you're saying in regards to Jared Goff, but this is still an offense that runs off of the success of the run game. And even though they do have a two-headed monster in Monty and Ja, David Montgomery said it most recently in their interview with the Pivot, where he was like, "We need Ja."
Yeah.
Right? And it's just a different level of talent and athleticism that they just can't replicate. Right? If David Montgomery misses a couple games, hey, you can still throw Craig Reynolds out there for a few snaps and to pick up some of those tough yardages. If Jahmyr Gibbs is lost for an extended amount of time, get ready to see a lot of end arounds to JMO. That's all I'm going to say. Like, expect to see a lot more Jamison Williams in the run game because that's the only way I can foresee them being able to replicate that level of big playability in the run game. And so it really does kind of hinge on the success of Jahmyr Gibbs for them to hit their ceiling. And if they do start to fall to their floor, I could foresee that being a lack of having him available this season.
Yeah, I think if you lose Jahmyr Gibbs for any sort of time, it isn't like, okay, let's throw Jacob Sailors in there. He'll do that. Like it's one of those things that we talked about where it's like you have to change your identity. This team has to change its identity, and I think they have enough to overcome that and try something else, but it's not going to be the same, right? It's going to be it would be a major. I'm not saying it's going to be. It would, in this alternate reality that's not this current reality because it's not going to happen. That would be devastating.
Right. And again, that would come back on who? John Morton. I mean,
Yep.
if that happens if that happens on a Sunday and they have to go play on Thursday, you better be able to game plan and build the plane while it's in the air, so to speak.
Right.
And everyone had better been able to game plan for their snacks this upcoming season because that's a key part of any Sunday is making sure that you have high quality snacks. And if you're going with Righteous Felon Craft Jerky, I'm sure you're set. The Pride of Detroit podcast is brought to you by Righteous Felon Craft Jerky. It's the jerky that fuels the Pride of Detroit POD cast. Each 2-ounce bag of jerky has 16 to 20 grams of protein, and each stick has 8 grams. Trust me, if it's good enough for the Lions, it's going to be good enough for you too. Righteous Felon is based in Westchester, Pennsylvania. They use locally sourced, all-natural Black Angus beef and prides itself on superior quality, revolutionary branding, and unique flavors that go beyond the stereotypical jerky offering. Guys, yesterday I was shopping with my wife and my kids. We were doing like the last minute back to school shopping. While they were picking out clothes, I was building out my Righteous Felon Craft Jerky order because I need to get that in before this promo code expires.
That's right.
If you use the promo code POD20 at checkout, you can get 20% off your order. And that is only eligible until this Sunday?
Week 1,
and
yeah,
then
the
that's
start of Sunday's game, yeah.
that's it, right? So definitely go get your order in, get you some Marilyn Monroe, get you some, I don't know, guys, throw me some really good flavors that you're a fan of.
Teriyaki Balboa.
There we go.
Bao Capone, if it's available.
Darth Garlic is another one that is absolutely worth grabbing. So again, go to righteousfelon.com, use the promo code POD20 at checkout to get 20% off your order. That's promo code POD20 at righteousfelon.com. When we come back, we're going to jump over to the defensive side of the football, talk about some of the biggest questions posing Kelvin Shepherd in that unit and how we can expect them to kind of, be ready for the season. So we'll be right back after this.
All right. We're on break, and as our chat is filling up, because there's been a couple of notable tweets that have been sent out in the past 10 minutes by some NFL insiders that I think we'll talk about a little bit later. It's still not used. I'm still not used to seeing these words together, but Packers linebacker Micah Parsons has been dealing with an L4, L5 facet joint sprain in his back, and he may take an epidural injection prior to Sunday's game versus the Lions if needed to help them play, per source. Blah, 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 blah. Parsons has been practicing this week, and he's trying to play in Sunday's opener versus the Lions. The one source said it is still uncertain that he will.
I don't really understand like how the league can let a player play when it's like, hey, you have to take something that, you know, women have to use to give birth. Like, I feel like that's a legitimate reason to be like, yeah, you can't play.
Yeah, and then Rappaport basically tweeted the same thing. I think he's still gonna play. Like, I'm not buying this, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, one of two things. One, they're just helping build up that mythos, right?
Yes.
Like,
yes,
right,
right. Oh,
look at
two
what he had
sacks
to
with
go
a bad
through.
back.
Yeah, imagine what he'll do when he doesn't have to have an epidural.
Right.
But if this is like a legitimate thing, because it said he may take an epidural, right? Like, it's not like he's scheduled or anything.
Right.
If he does have to do something like that, and you just paid him what you paid him, maybe just take the week off. You know what I mean? Like,
I was gonna say, like,
might take the first 2 weeks off. You might need to take the however long you need to get that right before you step foot on the field and start to play after the Packers just gave you the contract that they gave you.
This is why I think the most likely outcome is just give him third downs, give him 20 snaps, give him 30 snaps. And I'm not just saying that as like a hopeful, please don't play him for the entire game. I mean, he's also just learning the defense, right? He's also just learning what his teammates are like. And yes, in a sense, when you have Micah Parsons, you just say, hey, go get quarterback, leave everything else. But I think in week one, it's why we were talking about this before the show. It's why when Dan Campbell was asked today, like, what are you going to do? Does your game plan change against Mike, you know, now that they have Micah Parsons? And his response was, well, we haven't even done third down yet. I don't know if that was a coincidence or is that him saying like third down is when we're going to have to game plan for him because that's all we kind of expect from him in week one.
Right. Or we know exactly how we're going to run at him on first and second down.
I think, Ryan, you make the best point though. Like, you just paid him so much money, and kind of to piggyback off of, I think I saw it in the chat, Phenom Zhao said, like, no one's ever said, like, I used to have a bad back.
Levi Onwuzurike.
True.
But it's like,
yeah, no,
like,
I get it. I mean, back problems are nothing that you mess around
and you're
with.
talking about in football, you're talking about specifically like along the trenches. Like, there's just, yeah, why not just give him the first 3 weeks of the season? Okay, so he doesn't play against Detroit, Washington, and I think it's Cleveland. Like, if you can't go 2-1, like, then this team is as bad as I think it is.
We're gonna have lots of Micah Parsons talk, or as Adam Schefter dubbed him, Micah Packers, in his first tweet announcing the trade.
Geez.
All I know is that the Lions they lost a single regular season game without Aiden Hutchinson. So if you're a good enough team to go 15-2 and like contend, have a Super Bowl type season, you should be able to win without Micah Parsons.
Yeah, that checks out.
Can I just say, like, I'm also still very conflicted about this because, like, on one hand, like, I don't want him to have like a ton of success because like that means that he's probably like dominating us as well. But on the flip side, like, I want him to have a ton of success just so that we can all just continue to laugh at Jerry Jones.
Nah, I hate him too much. I can't laugh at him. I hate him too much.
Or that, like, whatever the case may be, like, however you feel, like, I just want this to continue to like follow Jerry for the rest of his life of like, hey, you were supposed to pay him and you decided to play Deron Bland instead.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, the optics of that didn't look great. You know,
I laughed. I was like, I think I was like in a drive-through somewhere, and that came through on my phone, and laughed out loud.
that definitely makes it feel like it was less about the player or less about the money, maybe so to speak, and it was more about like trying to prove something stupid.
I just wonder, like, if that whole like miscommunication of, I thought I thought we had a deal when I
Yeah,
negotiated with
like
you
we shook
person to
hands.
person.
Yeah,
If that moment is avoided, are we living in a parallel universe now where Mike Parsons is locked up as a Dallas Cowboy?
No, because I think the fact that it played out this way showed that like, in my opinion, the way I viewed it, either way it showed that Jerry did not value, at least the way Micah thought he should be valued.
Yeah.
And Jerry operates in a world where he is always right and he always gets what he wants. And he ran into a player that knew his worth. That was like, nah, like I'm more valuable than Dak Prescott.
It's wild. The whole thing is wild. We just talked about the epidural stuff. For those asking about the Schefter tweet, you can just rewind if you're on YouTube. 3 minutes.
And hold on, and just again, I could be wrong. So if there's anyone in the chat that knows, aren't epidurals like kind of risky just to get in general? Like the process of getting them?
I'm the wrong person to ask for that question.
I'm just asking. It's been a while. It's been a while since my wife had to get one, so like I can't remember.
hashtag ask POD.
Can you ask Chat GPT? Can they?
Oh gosh.
Nope. Don't. No one requests that. I'm not going to honor any Chat GPT questions
About epidurals. You have alerts to run through?
Yeah, let me read off some alerts since we haven't been live in like over a week.
Fluxibles right on cue. Right on cue. Junk trunk right on cue.
Nope. You're getting I told you you're getting refunded.
Why even refund him at this point? Why even refund him? You warned him.
It's true. That's very teacher of you. You're getting into teacher form.
Yeah.
John Johnson. I don't believe the former Rams safety, who I feel like I saw some. Did he get suspended? I feel like he got suspended recently. Thank you for the 11 months subscribed on Twitch. MGoKorg 52 months subscribed on Twitch, says LFG. Space Kataz 43 months subscribed on Twitch, says let's go. Thuzy Panda, thank you for following on Twitch. Guy Utah 33 months subscribed, says go Lions. FTP. It is FTP week, so I need all my Twitch subscribers to throw some FTPs in the chat, please, so we can see them up on the screen over there, that way. G Money, thank you for the 29 months subscribed to us on Twitch. Not that obvious, 24 months. Monkey 30 months says let's go LFG. Phenoms Wow 20 months says going to be a special Lion season. Just watch. Let's go POD. Robo, thank you for the 43 months, says let's go Lions money line week 1, baby.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. I open Pandora's box of talking about betting.
It wasn't even me too, you know.
I know. Bayad, thank you for the 1 bit, says last year we were worried about all camp about wide receiver 3 until Patrick came. Even though Khalif was here, now we're in the exact same place. If Tesla isn't part of the big picture, but this time it's just fine. Yes. Okay. I get it. Yeah, I agree. Thano TV, 32 months, says, love you guys. Thanks, buddy. Nick the Greek, 57 months, says, Matt Patricia's Buckeye-sized nipples. Then 100 bits says, Matt Patricia's exempt up flapjack bosoms. Wow. Jason Sarnick, 9 months subscribed. That's a full Twitch, baby. Appreciate you. Nick the Greek, another 100 bits says, Matt Patricia's paid $5,000 to have an Ozempic pen retrofitted to look like a number 2 pencil.
He was on that sideline on Saturday, rocking the laminated play call sheet, pencil still in ear.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, that's a good defensive
It's
performance.
branding at this point. It's branding at this point.
Well,
You gotta
well,
just
well.
roll
So
with
that's
it.
that's why I want to ask you guys: more or less useful, a pencil with a laminated play call sheet, or two watches?
Dang.
I don't get the two watches thing. The two
Shots-
watches thing is just weird.
Shots fired to both of the Lions' previous coaching staffs.
I can at least respect
Especially when you're
two
not going to use
watches.
timeouts.
Nah. I think that was probably when Jeremy most openly campaigned for a job in the Lions organization to be like, let me just be in charge of time.
Yeah.
Let me do that.
Yeah.
I just remember that being like the biggest criticism of Jim Caldwell at the time was like, bro, you got two watches on it. You're still not using timeouts.
Great guy.
That's what I hear. Sundog, 32 months subscribed on Twitch, says crazy to spend all that money on Micah and not have the best pass rusher in the division, FTP. I like that. One Pride, hey, a YouTube membership. Appreciate you, buddy. We almost never get those during the live show. I know that we have like a handful of YouTube subscribers, but we never get the resub alerts here during the show. So One Pride, 0427, appreciate you. And look at that. Right after that, jumps over to Twitch. 29 months subscribed on Twitch. That's incredible. And that's, by the way, that is not a Twitch Prime. He straight up paid both for a YouTube and a Twitch subscription. Appreciate that, buddy.
Dang.
Shout out to One Pride. Chaos Cam, 100 bits.
Why does he get praised for like paying for his, and every time like I get notified, or whenever you get notified that I'm still paying for mine, it's like, why aren't you using your Prime?
I don't know if he
I get
doesn't.
admonished
I don't know if
for
he
it.
has Prime. Because to me, since he's paying on the YouTube side, it would be completely. He can do whatever he wants
I get
with
it.
the Twitch side. He's
Well,
No, it's all right, Jeremy. I remember there was a time when the money of my people weren't welcome here either. It's okay.
Wow.
You know what? It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with ordering a steak to go, Miko.
That's right.
Like he like the level of disrespect now that Jeremy has for you.
It's true.
I think we're even. He only watched 3 episodes of Game of Thrones. We're fine.
Oh, we're gonna go into that now, huh?
Oh, such a funny like it just popped up on my phone. I'm like trying to like get through like the first week of school, and I just like look at my phone screen. It's like someone who watches Game of Thrones. What does this Tom Kennedy tweet mean?
Well, here's the thing: the people, I put it out there on Twitter, and everyone's like, I don't know. Like, does it mean he's no longer in the training and he's done, or does it mean he's back to the practice squad? No.
The number of people that said Vikings, those people like disappointed me. Like
Those people
Shame on you.
disappointed me. Oh man.
Chaos Cam 100 bits says visiting Detroit for the first time for Thanksgiving this year. What are some
Oh,
top things you'd recommend to do with your 2 days there?
Sweetwater.
Sweetwater wings.
there's a lot of good food options.
Yeah.
Lots of good food options.
We get asked this question a lot. And I think we always go to food because we're all passionate about food and everyone likes food.
Everybody eats for the most part. You know?
Sure. Do you guys have like Detroit activities that are go to for, I don't want to say tourists, but people visiting? Oh yeah, Baobab Fair is one of my faves. Glad you went there, Coffee.
This is where I feel like a bad Michigander because like I don't, right?
Yeah.
Like nothing is like, oh, you have to do this. Like in certain pockets of the state, like if you're in like the Macomb, Oakland County area, like Yates is like a place where I'm like, oh, if you love apple cider and donuts, it's a great place to go. Blake's is another, like there's some good like cider mills and stuff like that to go check out. But yeah, I'm a bad Michigander in that regard.
It's they said they were going to be here around Thanksgiving time.
Yeah, for the Thanksgiving game, yeah.
That makes it tough though, because it's like I don't want to recommend you do something outside. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's entirely possible you're not going to have a fun time doing that thing outside. So, yeah, just eat food.
Eat food. I mean, like I think Campus
Eastern
Martius,
Market. Yeah,
Eastern Market, Campus Martius, downtown, like those are the really nice looking places downtown that are active and fun, and
especially that time of the year with Campus Martius, like they'll
Right.
probably have a lot of stuff set up for
might
Christmas
have
and stuff.
is the ice rink maybe out
Maybe,
there
yeah.
if you're an ice skater or want to try ice skating. I don't remember when they put that up, but it's probably close to Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Kelvin Shepherd interview with Glover Cohn was good. I watched that this morning.
Yeah.
Almost wrote an article about it because of what he said about Terrion, which is always funny. Like, he has that same Aaron Glenn thing where he doesn't love complimenting his players because he doesn't want them to get like too high on their own supply.
Yeah, that's fair. I understand that. I love how much he hypes up everybody else. Like all of his positional coaches
Yep.
couldn't stop talking about Casey Rogers.
Yeah. He mentioned like every single assistant he had.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm
all
like,
of
oh wait, that guy's coaching the nickel position? Did I know that?
them. Right? Yeah. It's like, oh, this guy he's doing that? Like specifically, like I forgot who it was, right? It was who did he like they took him off
I think
one
he
job
was-
and put him on that.
Yeah, like he was a what do they call that? The I forgot. They have a name for like looking at I don't know. I'd have to look at the roster. But anyways.
Yeah. The Sean Dion Hamilton thing where he's like, that's gonna be the next hot name
Yeah.
that you hear. And I was like, Sean
Quality
Dion
control.
Hamilton? Quality
Yeah.
control. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I was thinking. Who was the guy he was talking about though? I'm trying to remember.
I just remember the line about Casey Rogers. He's like, he's been doing that since he's been doing this since I've been in an incubator. It's like
And the Correo stuff where he's just like, that guy's been in the building longer than
yeah, right.
some of the other guys. He was, I mean, the things he said about Casey Rogers were very, very high. Like he's like Terrell Williams, like absolute stud. This is the best defensive line coach I've ever worked with.
Yeah. That was like he's like all due respect kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's like anybody who had an opening along their defensive line all had Casey Rogers first on their list.
Yep. I know that as a fact, is
Yeah.
what he said.
Right.
Couple goodies from there. I mean, I can say this. I don't really want to talk too much about my weekend because I know some people have been sending well wishes and all that sort of stuff, and I appreciate that. But I will say on my flight that I had to take on Thursday, Kelvin Shepherd was on, which I don't know if I would have noticed, but he got called to the counter right before we booked in. I wonder if like he was annoyed by that because, you know, he's in Metro Detroit Airport and
DTW, yeah.
yeah, Kelvin Shepherd, will you please come to the gate? I imagine a lot of
Shepherd,
people suddenly
Kelvin.
lift their head up.
I was gonna say, a lot of heads turned. Yeah.
I would think so. I wasn't paying too much close attention because my head turned. I'm like, wait, what?
A lot of meerkat heads, like just
Yeah. All right. Am I done with alerts? I don't think I am. I am not. Coffee server. First time subscribing user to Twitch Prime. Appreciate that. And followed on Twitch. Appreciate that as well. And I see you chatting away as well. I love that kind of interactivity on your first time here. Or at least first time subscribing and following. Junk Trunk, 37 month, says sim this week. That is the current plan. I do not have the game yet. But assuming
I
I
get a free code.
I'm holding out until the last second that someone and I to be clear, I don't want it to be any of you guys. The team, EA, someone send me a code. Because this is all I do with Madden. I don't actually play the game. I just simulate it. That's it.
You say it could be like morning of. Jeremy's still like holding out hope. You got to put in that credit card information.
I know how long that thing takes to download. I got to do it by at least Thursday, or it's not going to be fully downloaded. For Puri, thank you for the 3 months subscribed. to us on Twitch. It says filet is overrated.
What? Oh, fish? Filet of fish?
No, I assume you mean steak. I actually don't have strong opinions on cut of steak. I don't know if I've developed a one that I prefer the most.
Yeah, I don't think I have a preferred. No, it's just like how it's cooked is really all that matters to me.
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to open my mouth and say that I prefer one cut over the other. But I will say that like ribeye is usually the most like unappeasing to look at.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I'm a sucker for like a prime rib carving station though.
Oh, sure. I mean, just like standard amongst your Golden Corrals.
That's right. That's right. It's the only reason to go.
I
Just
miss the
stay
days.
there.
I miss the days when I could look at buffets and like actually be excited about them. Now it's just like COVID ruined that.
Can't help myself. I still love it.
I would go to a Chinese buffet right now if you guys wanted to call good on the podcast, and if you guys just wanted to meet up for Chinese buffet,
I haven't done one of those in years, and I probably would do that.
I'd absolutely go. I'd go if you wanted to go in 2 hours. I'd meet you there.
Yeah.
By the way,
On
one
a
thing we
Labor
haven't
Day.
mentioned. One thing we haven't mentioned is this is going to be a 3-segment podcast.
Yeah, it's a long one, guys.
So buckle up,
Yeah.
y'all.
So maybe we should like get back into it soon.
Maybe. I thought there was something else I was going to do when I got through.
Oh, did we want to?
art.
Did we want to announce the preview podcast that'll be starting this week?
If you're ready to announce it, it's on you. We should.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
if we're going to announce it, we should probably do it during the show at the end, right?
Yeah, if you remind me. If you can remind me, because I'm
Yeah.
probably not gonna remember 3 segments deep. I'm probably by the end of this, I'm gonna be seeing stars.
That's totally fair. Nick the Rig with another 100 bits. I'm going to preface what he wrote that I'm going to read with it is not actually true. This is not true what I'm about to say, but this is what Nick the Greek wanted me to say. It says Jeff Okuda was just put on IR with a torn scrotum. Poor guy. Not true. Not true.
Not a factual statement.
All right. One thing I want to do. Oh yeah, some U.S. Open, baby. Is that Naomi?
Yeah, it's Osaka and golf, man.
Oh, they're playing right now against each other.
Yeah. So
Oh,
so they
that's gotta
said
be a good one.
they
I want
said
them
they
both to
said
win.
they said that this time slot is like a bigger time slot than like putting because there's always those people that are like, oh, you should put it in prime time. Like that's yeah. But they're like, well, with it being a holiday, Memorial Day or Labor Day on Monday, like this is like when we get the most viewership usually.
I know a crazy Tigers game is going on right now too. So thanks to everybody who's spending your holiday with us right now, despite the fact that there are sports things happening.
81 people on Twitch. I don't know how many on
Nice.
YouTube, but
That's actually real solid numbers for Twitch, considering that YouTube has kind of taken over our primary viewership. Ronan, not only did Jeff Okuda make the Vikes roster, like I think he's expected to start when they're in nickel. Because I think one of their outside corner starters is their primary nickel, so that when he slides inside, Jeff Okuda comes on the field to the outside.
Would you
oh, they
ever-
flipped Byron Murphy outside.
Gosh, I don't know
I
if I
think
would
so.
like that. I don't know if I would like that if I was a corner or a Vikings fan.
I mean,
I don't
they're not
Brian
great at corner
Flores,
too.
so whatever.
We were talking off stream, I think, about the Packers having a not great corner room, but it's very much true of the Vikings as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can at least name Byron Murphy.
Fair. All right, I got 2 more alerts. Someone wants to see Zazu. I'll bring him in a second as well. Austin Mammoth, 36 months, subscribed, says my tummy hurts. Why is your tummy hurt, Austin? What happened? Did you eat a well-done steak?
Nothing that some righteous felon beef jerky won't fix.
Hey, company man.
Justin Sane, 40 months, subscribed to the channel, says LFG. All right, let me go get my pup. We're going to show him on screen for a couple seconds, and then we're going to get into the second segment.
I almost bought a righteous felon hat from their website, and then I was like, "No, they don't pay us enough yet for that."
Hey, they should stuff that in my jerky order. They should see Miko Scott. They should know where I'm I used
Yeah.
the POD20 code.
You gotta come all the way. Come, get off the bed. Come here. Sorry.
They start
Yeah.
throwing a bigger bag, I'll start shelling out and
There you go.
start buying the merch too.
There you go.
Come. He's very comfortable in the bed right now. Come. There you go.
I don't blame you, Zazu.
Come here. We'll go full screen for a second. Just get your channel points worth. We'll talk to guy. He wants a little bit of Soul Survivor, so I think I'm going to give it to him.
I just realized the other day that they actually sell like jerky for dogs on their website.
Did it really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Leave it. Good boy.
Look at that.
So it's another reason for you to shop at Righteous Felon Beef, craft
Sure.
jerky.
High quality dog.
Feed
Eat your pets.
Oh. All right. That was too much squeezing. He didn't like that. All right. You guys ready to get back to it?
Yeah, let's do it.
By the way, over 250 people on YouTube. So.
Oh dang!
Let's go.
Oh dang!
All right, let's get you back to this screen. We're good to go.
And welcome back to the Pride of Detroit PODcast, talking defense here in segment 2. And in case you are wondering, yeah, this is going to be a 3-segment podcast because there's a lot to talk about as we kind of gear up for the season. Ryan, I'm going to start with you. We talked in the first segment, we kicked it off talking about Johnny Morton. We also equally have to talk about Kelvin Sheppard if we're going to talk about whether or not the defense can live up to what they did last year, which was kind of like a bit of a magic trick in sense of like overcoming so many injuries. When you look at who Kelvin Sheppard is as a coach, how do you foresee him putting his stamp on this defense in year one? Like, what do you think is going to be a definitive thing when you think about a Kelvin Sheppard defense?
Good question. I wonder if the preseason gave us any hint of how aggressive Kelvin Sheppard's going to be in year one as the defensive coordinator. The Lions, obviously things changed because of the loss of Aiden Hutchinson last year, so Aaron Glenn had to really dial up the way that he could manufacture and get pressure on the quarterback. They went from 11th in blitz rate in 2023 to second in blitz rate. They were blitzing on almost 35% of their snaps. Now, that's obviously, like I said, probably a product of having to get a little creative as you're losing player after player after player, and you don't have Derek Barnes, and you don't have Aiden Hutchinson, you don't have Marcus Davenport. You're losing players left and right. But Aaron Glenn was still a very much aggressive play caller. He still liked to blitz. He likes playing press man. I don't see a lot changing. But Jeremy, I don't really have a great answer for this. So I know Miko came to me first, but like, I was just wondering, is there something that you foresee, whether it's something you saw in training camp, something you heard from Kelvin Sheppard, that leads you to think, oh, this might be the wrinkle that he provides for this defense that Aaron Glenn didn't?
No. No. I consider this year 5 of Aaron Glenn. I really do. Like, and I think you want it to be, right? I think you want these players, these young players. It's a young defense, right? A lot of their best players, a lot of their starters and depth are young players. These are guys that were born and bred into this defense, and you want them to master it. You want them to understand it through and through, and so you don't want to change it too much. Obviously, their tendencies are going to change a little bit as they change year by year, right? Like you said, Aaron Glenn went from middle of the road blitzer to one of the most advocates for blitzing, and I think both Aaron Glenn and Kelvin Sheppard understand the importance and value of taking it to an offense, right? Dictating things on your terms, and so that's not going to change. So I think when it comes to the Lions roster, you want a guy like Jack Campbell who's entering year 3. Let's not change everything up. That's how these overhauls of your coaching staff go sour, is that you're this guy wants to do things their way. No, it's building on top of the foundation that you already have. And so with him, Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem when he comes back, this team is just, it's so full of guys that are just hitting their strides that I think it makes more sense for this to be, Lions defense 5.0, right? As the Lions, or, 501, whatever, way you want to say it. They want this defense to be mastered front to back. And I think when you have all 11 players working with that basic knowledge, really, I shouldn't even say, but with that advanced knowledge of that defense, that's when a defense becomes dangerous. And I think that's part of the reason why they were able to kind of do what they did last year without some of those major pieces. Is just the guys that were there on the field knew what they were doing. They knew the nuances of the scheme. And so I just think there's not a lot of value in any sort of whole scale changes. You want to continue to grow, you want to continue to build on, but you don't want to change.
And I think that's why for me, Ryan, like there is a little bit more like on the plate as far as expectations on Kelvin Shepherd than maybe Johnny Morton, because I think Kelvin Shepherd has I think it's an easier thing to potentially like mess up if you do try and shift too many things on that side of the football. Because I think at the end of the day on the offense, like you still have Jared Goff, you still have Jahmyr Gibbs, like those guys know and execute the offense in a way that is like built for them. The defense, like if you start trying to play with that formula a little bit too much, like we're saying, like, if you choose to be a little too aggressive with your linebackers versus what Aaron Glenn tried to do, like how does that impact not just the linebacker group, but how does that impact your secondary? And like that feels more like a domino effect than necessarily what could happen on the offensive side of the football.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. And I think week in and week out, where did you see the most ire from Lions fans on social media? Was it on defense or was it on offense? And I know, take the injuries aside, you can go back to 2023. You can go back to 2022. It seemed like everybody and their mother had an opinion about Aaron Glenn and the job that he was doing. I think that Aaron Glenn was one of the most important coaches in terms of setting up this team for success. Everything that Jeremy just said in terms of you want to stay the course and you want this defense to just be mastering what Aaron Glenn set it up to be. Well, yeah, I totally agree, because I think that he was that essential and that important to all of this stuff getting up to speed. And I think you can kind of make the argument that like the defense is pretty turnkey as far as players that they have, and then players that they're eventually going to get, a couple months into the season. So it's a lot of pressure is on those two coordinators' shoulders, but I'm just ready for it to start because I'm so sick and tired of people highlighting that as their main reason the Lions will regress. Like if you want to talk about the schedule, fine. If you want to talk about,
offensive line,
if you want to talk about, the defense was hit really hard with injuries, but the offense wasn't hit with injuries hardly at all. So like, you might have some regression on offense. You can talk about all those things and I'll be right there lock in step with you. But just because the Philadelphia Eagles struggled from one year to the next and then replaced all their coordinators and then won a Super Bowl, it's boy math. It's the worst kind of boy math that's going on right now in football media. Is talking, Jeremy, that the Lions, how will they ever overcome these coaching changes?
Yeah, I think it's, if you're just using it as a blanket statement, like, oh, new coordinators, this is going to be a whole different shift, it's going to be different for them, like, that's just a basic understanding of what the Lions actually did to replace those coaches. If you want to say, hey, these guys don't have a lot of experience play calling, or they don't have a lot of proven experience play calling, well, yeah, that's, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. But I'm still of the belief that, one, when you have a system that is consistent year to year, despite of your coordinators, and you have the players that have the experience running it, you're just kind of steering the ship a little bit as a coordinator. I'm not trying to downplay their importance, but at the same time, if you have the Jimmies and Joes, sometimes the X's and O's aren't as important.
Yeah, I think leaning too heavily into the whole like, oh, there's new coordinators, so things are going to drastically change, I think really does, specifically in in the argument of Kelvin Shepherd, I think it really does a disservice to like the stewardship that he had with Aaron Glenn and how much he was learning under him in terms of truly being like a student in that situation. And I mean, even AG talked about it while he was here. Like Kelvin Shepherd was almost like attached at the hip when it came down to everything that ran with that defense. So just like with the offense, where we're kind of like how Ryan kind of said, like it's fairly turning key with the offense. Like the defense is, I imagine, going to still be the same way. Are there going to probably be some more responsibilities put on certain players? Yeah, probably, but that's not just because of a coordinator change. That's also due to a guy like Jack Campbell going into what, his fourth year now. So it's like, yeah, you should be taking on more responsibility. Brian Branch, you should be taking on more command of the secondary. The next question that we're going to kind of get to includes Terry Arnold, but like, yeah, TA, I know it's only your second year in the league, but we need you to make a jump as well, and that's not just because Kelvin Shepherd is now your DC. Um, Again, speaking of Terry Arnold, I want to give you guys just a Brian, you were talking about boy math, but like let's keep this fairly simple in terms of who is more important for the Lions reaching their defensive expectations. Which do you think is more important? Marcus Davenport playing 12 plus games this upcoming season, or Terrion Arnold finishing as a top 40 coverage, corner according to PFF? Jeremy,
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw it to you first. Or
Let,
Brian,
let,
you can
I was gonna say, let me explain my boy math a little bit here because I'm the
yeah.
one who set up all these hypotheticals. Terry and Arnold, some of the context is last year he finished 105th out of 111 qualifying corners in coverage grade. He had a 50.4 grade. Mike Hilton and DJ Turner, they both played for Cincinnati, so a little bit of coincidence, but they both finished tied for 40th at 68.4. So it's like that's a pretty sizable jump. Like, and I know PFF coverage grades take them for what they are, right? But like, I think for the most part, you can see once you start to get up in that neighborhood, you're seeing names of players that you know and names of players that you trust as being solid contributors to their team. So like that's kind of where I'm putting this, Jeremy. Like, what's more important, the health of Marcus Davenport opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, or Terry and Arnold making a good enough jump that it's really that edge rush versus secondary question.
Yeah, right. That's what I was going to bring up, the age-old question, or at least decade-old question of which is more important to a team, their coverage or their pass rush. And you go either way. I feel like the league certainly seems to value pass rush a little bit more, but corners are certainly catching up with the market that those guys are getting right now.
Dallas Cowboys think so.
Right. They made their choice, no doubt.
They drew their line in the sand.
I think I'm going with Marcus Davenport, and it more has to do with the depth behind him than anything else. Because I am with people. I don't love the depth at edge. I do want a Zadarius Smith on the roster, not because they don't have any options outside of Aiden Hutchinson, but like they need to rotate those guys, right? They need Marcus Davenport is not going to play 80-90% of the snaps. Aiden will, but you need guys to be able to rotate in there, and I understand some of the interior guys will kick outside. I know Derek Barnes continues to be the guy that we forget to talk about in these situations, and he's going to be part of that as well. But if they do lose Marcus Davenport, it does kind of feel like they're back to square one when it comes to their depth. They're not going to have Josh Pascal right away. They're not going to have Levi Onwuzurike at all this year. And so those are guys that maybe we expected, okay, well, even if Marcus doesn't play, when they signed Marcus, they're like, well, even if he doesn't play 10 games, they'll get Pascal back. We expect him back in week 1. That's not happening. We expect Levi to play a little bit on the edge. Now that's not happening. So I really hope both of these things happen. I hope Marcus Davenport plays 12 games, and I do think we might see a Terrion Arnold kind of jump. We were talking during the break about a really good interview, Glover Quinn, and remind me of the former FS1 guy, Trevor Thompson interviewing Kelvin Shepherd and talking about how Terrion Arnold took a maybe the biggest jump he's seen of anyone in training camp, and to a point where like he's playing like a CB1. That also helps this problem, right? This helps the pass rush problem. If those guys can cover a little bit longer, it helps Aiden Hutchinson be better. It would help mask maybe a Marcus Davenport injury if it happens, but ultimately I think I have a tiny bit more a little more faith in the Lions' depth at corner than I do at edge.
Yeah, Ryan. if I'm looking at this question, I kind of in the same boat as Jeremy. Like I think the Lions need Marcus Davenport to play more games this season because I think that has a direct correlation to like also improved play from Terrion Arnold. Terrion Arnold still can make a great jump that is not going to help the health of Marcus Davenport. That does not guarantee you a healthy Marcus Davenport. But I do think an available Marcus Davenport for 12 games can do wonders for both your run game, for your pass rush, and that can make the life of a Terrion Arnold that much easier, and that can make it so much more likely for him to make the kind of jump that we would like to see him make in his second year in the league.
Yeah, and Marcus Davenport hasn't played more than 12 games since 2022, his last year with New Orleans, where he played in 15 games. I think it comes back to the edge stuff in terms of depth, in terms of what you have there right now. If you tell me that you're going to get 12 games out of Marcus Davenport this year, I feel pretty good about the edge position when you factor in, well, eventually, you'll get maybe Josh Pascal back at some point too, right? Maybe the Lions get things figured out with Zadarius Smith. I don't know, right? I think the problem that we're having as Lions fans, and we'll talk about this in the third segment when we get to the Micah Parsons stuff, but it's almost the assumption that maybe once Marcus Davenport gets injured, well, he's done. He's going to be put on IR, and it's going to be just like last year. And if you only get like 3 games out of him, it'll be an injury, and then his season's done, right? Like there isn't an opportunity for him to get dinged up and miss a game, or dinged up and maybe get put on IR and miss 4 weeks or whatever it is until he comes back. I hope the guy uses it as motivation, but I think it's so important that they have that guy opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, and it'll make just everything easier on the back end. It'll make everything easier on first and second down too. So
I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a second here because I do want to note the importance of Terrion Arnold's growth and jump in year 2, because as we saw last year, the Lions can generate pass rush if they don't have the bodies. I don't know how you generate coverage. That to me is a little bit harder. You can't, if a guy isn't there, you can't just, I mean, maybe it means you play more zone than man. That's I guess that's one way you can do it. But like, there's not a blitz equivalent to coverage. Like drop 8. I mean, I don't know. It's not the same,
Yeah,
it would be drop 8, I think.
Yeah.
But I think
the Lions don't want to do that. That's like the last thing they would want to do, right?
But I also think like that would be a regression of Terrion Arnold, right? Like that's not even just him like not getting, like he would have to regress to that standpoint, because one of the things with him last year, at least especially like the early parts of the season, was like, oh, he was in phase and he would be like with guys, but then he would get too grabby or just like not know where to locate the ball and things like that. If we're talking to the point where like he's getting cooked off the line, like, well, I feel like now, Ryan, we've regressed. Like something has seriously gone wrong with Terrion Arnold to where he can't even like stick with guys early in routes.
I think that answer to more coverage is just Rock Ya-Sin. Just get Rock Ya-Sin on the field. That's how you generate more coverage.
We're gonna get to Rock Ya-Sin in a minute here, but I do want to talk to you guys about one thing. Like obviously, edge is something that I think like Lions fans are going to continue to harp about until they see it working out. But one other good way of helping yourself out with the pass rush is just by having good interior pressure and having good stout defensive tackles. We haven't talked a lot about Aleem like this offseason because we already know what the situation. He's injured. He's not going to be back for a couple months, which means insert Tyleik Williams, your first round pick from this year's draft. Jeremy, where is your confidence level that like Tyleik will be able to serve like as a serviceable replacement for Aleem within those first couple months of the season?
As a run defender, high. As a pass rusher, low. Like, I'm being straight with you all. Like, I don't think you're gonna see a ton of pass rush from Tyleik right away. I think that's something that's more of a year or two down the line type of situation, because that's how long it took Aleem, and they constantly are comparing the two, right? How they have kind of the same skill set in there, but it's gonna take a developmental curve. And I do think if you look at Tyleik's tape, if you look at his build, if you look at his explosiveness, like he can maybe fast track a little bit of what Aleem McNeil did, but it's not going to be there right away. And it's probably not going to be there in time for it to happen before Aleem comes back. But at the same time, this team is still very much a stop the run first type of defense. And that's going to be valuable right away. To put him next to DJ Reader means they're there are going to be interior offensive linemen that have to make some very tough decisions in split moments, and you hope that the other one can take advantage in the run game. You hope that maybe the other one can flash a little bit in the pass rush, but that's a lot to put on a rookie. That's a lot to put on a rookie who isn't in year, 5 of this defense. That doesn't know the tendencies of offensive linemen, doesn't know what it's like to go up against an NFL offensive lineman. So, yeah, I think my expectations are a little bit more tempered with him than maybe some of the other rookies on this Lions team.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add as far as I think Jeremy put it pretty well in terms of as a run defender, I have a lot of confidence. As a pass rusher, that's a work in progress. But to the other point, you can figure out a way to generate pressure up the middle if you want. You can manufacture some stuff with using other players on that defense to not put that solely on Tyreek Williams to make that happen. I think the thing that I'm most excited for, and maybe where there's room for more optimism in terms of pass rush with him specifically, is just Casey Rogers. I think having Casey Rogers, a guy that Kelvin Shepherd talked very highly about, said that he's been doing this since Kelvin Shepherd was in an incubator. In his conversation he was having with Glover Quinn, he says he turns to him for a lot of information and knowledge, and he can lean on him. He's a guy who, for all the praise that we gave Terrell Williams last season, who's now the defensive coordinator for the New England Patriots, Kelvin Shepherd wasn't shy about saying that the Lions upgraded with Casey Rogers, and meant no disrespect to Terrell Williams, but he essentially said, any team that needed a defensive line coach was calling Casey Rogers, and he was their number one pick, and he ended up in Detroit. I think that's a huge get for guys. I know we want to say the secondary's in a really good spot. We want to say the linebackers are in a really good spot. You get Aiden Hutchinson back. There's so many questions along that defensive line, but that group arguably has maybe the best positional coach. It's like, well, let's see how great Casey Rogers is, right? A new player like Tyreek Williams. I mean, he did wonders with Kalijah Cansey, right? Like Kalijah Cansey was starting to pop off in Tampa Bay. We'll see. I mean, I my confidence level, though, is right there with Jeremy. Like, first and second down, I've seen him two gap. He can do that. Pass rush, anything that he gives is gravy, I think, in my opinion.
And I think that's why, like, for me, like, across the board, my confidence level is still fairly high. Like, if we're talking about like 1 through 5 type of situation, like, it's still at a 4, like on a high scale, just because of what I expected Tyreek to kind of bring as a rookie. Like, I didn't think we were getting Aaron Donald, guys. I guess that's the easiest way of saying it. I didn't think I was getting this pass rushing savant at defensive tackle. I thought I was getting someone in here that was going to give Aiden Hutchinson more opportunities to get to the quarterback. And that's essentially like Tyreek's job as a rookie, is to continue to make first and second down difficult, so that third down becomes a free for all for guys like Aiden Hutchinson, for guys like Marcus Davenport, for Kelvin Shepherd to get creative with the likes of Brian Branch and Jack Campbell and Alex Anzalone. Like, that's your responsibility. It's not to go out there and be Aleem McNeil and rack up 5 sacks individually in the first 2 months. I don't necessarily need you to do that. I need you to be stout in the run game and allow us to get to a situation where our playmakers, our actual pass rushers, our Derek Barnes, like you mentioned, Jeremy, who kind of gets forgotten, those guys can flourish and create havoc for the quarterback.
Yeah. And another guy that I think we've forgotten about a little bit because we didn't see him at all in training camp until the very, 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 very end, is Mekhi Wingo. What's he going to provide in terms of pass rush? Because like that does feel like a little bit more in his wheelhouse, maybe early this season. Obviously, I think it's going to take him a little bit to hit the ground running here, but he's an option to have one of those interior guys out there on third down while they're still working on Tyreek and his ability to rush the passer.
Speaking of Mekhi Wingo, that kind of leads us to like the next question, which is some of the depth pieces. And we know how the Lions like to utilize the depth along their specifically on the defensive side, right? Whether it's secondary depth, whether it's defensive line depth, linebacker depth, whatever the case may be. When you guys look at some of the big names, when you talk about an Avonte Maddox, a Rock Ya-Sin, a Roy Lopez, a Grant Stewart, those types of guys, like who in your mind, Jeremy, like stands out as like, hey, this person is going to be kind of important for the Lions to sustain like some long-term success on the defensive side of the football?
I mean, it to me, it's a question of how much can you do for us? And Rock Ya-Sin looks like a guy who can do just about anything. And obviously, like I don't want to overstate who he is. He was a free agent for a reason, right? He isn't this like lockdown corner slash premier safety, but man, when he moved to safety halfway through training camp, that looked like a pretty natural move to him. And he wasn't bad at outside corner when he was repping there, in the first and second preseason games either. So to me, when you have a piece like that can just step in any place, one, that probably means you're going to see him at some point, right? If he's covering enough positions, someone at that position is going to get in, at one of those positions is going to get injured and he's going to have to step in. But beyond that, players who are like that stick around. He might be only on a 1-year deal, but he's a guy that you could definitely see as, people are going to hate this comparison, and I don't mean talent level, but I mean in terms of just overall value, but like kind of the Will Harris, right?
There it is. I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
I knew who it was. Yeah.
But there's a reason why Will Harris was around as long as he was around these parts, because he did provide a guy who knew the system, a guy who could at least do the general duties of his job as well as contribute on special teams. So I think Rock Ya-Sin has a lot of overlap with that guy, but probably a little bit of a higher potential in terms of actual talent.
Yeah, my name is Grant Stewart because it'll always be Grant Stewart ever since the Lions got him. Still campaigning for him to maybe even it's just like anybody in the linebacker room having a baby, like anybody expecting, like they just need the week off, like Grant Stewart will come in, he'll take care of business for you. But I think like special teams, I mean, I know we're talking about defense, but like once you start getting into these depth guys, like Jeremy mentioned, you need to be a little bit more versatile. You need to also provide something else in some other way, in some other phase. And if that's special teams, like, yeah, like Rock Ya-Sin does stand out. Grant Stewart stands out. I think one of the more intriguing pieces that's new is Tyler Lacey. I think that's a really intriguing option when, we just got done talking about Tyleik Williams and generating pass rush from the interior. That's a guy who played a lot of three technique in Jacksonville. So, that's an interesting name. I don't, again, haven't really seen much of it, but that again, if you need depth and you're looking at any of these positions where depth is going to be needed, the defensive line is one that sticks out, and that's why we all started here talking about Mekhi Wingo, right? Like the depth pieces are the pieces that you hope at least one of them catches on, right? Like you hope that Al-Qadim Muhammad is somebody who can contribute in spurts, or Mekhi Wingo, or even Roy Lopez that we had mentioned here. Maybe he can step in, right, and spell DJ Reader when they need somebody to play some nose tackle.
I like the fact that you brought up Tyler Lacey, because I think between Lacey and Tyrus Wheat, like those are two guys that the fact that the Lions went out and put in waiver claims for the defensive line, which was something that they were being kind of criticized for, like, oh, you only have 3 pass rushers, and then the Lions go out and get 2 guys that are fairly versatile in terms of playing along that defensive line. Like I am curious about the plan and how they foresee those guys being utilized, and if they can be some quality depth of guys who kind of rotate in. You also brought up Al-Qadim Muhammad. Like Al-Qadim Muhammad played a great, like, serviceable role for this team last year when they didn't have all of their pieces. And it will be interesting to see, like, what does that look like when you do have an Aiden Hutchinson on the opposite side, and you can kind of rotate in Muhammad and Hutch in certain situations where Davenport needs a breather. Like, there's a lot of intrigue there. But Jeremy, I am kind of right there with you with Rock Ya-Sin, where it's just like, I'm excited. I was excited when he got signed, and I had to contain my excitement because I had to understand that, like, hey, he was a free agent for a reason. He may not get signed, or he may not stay like on the final 53. Right. And the fact that, like you said, he was doing well at corner, and he was doing so well at corner that they were like, hey, let's see what else you can do. And he continued to kind of like trend upward. You brought up Will Harris, and I know they're different players, especially like makeup wise, but like I do start to wonder if he starts to fill in with like the iffy usage, where it's like he becomes that third safety that you want to get on the field, not necessarily because he's the focal point, but just so you can continue doing freaky things with Brian Branch, like just so that he can continue to be one of your stars on defense, and you can literally allow him to kind of thrive in the same way he was thriving at Alabama in that Viper role where it's like, dude, we're just putting you on the field and we just expect you to go make plays.
Yeah. I mean, versatility allows you to do those things, right? It's we talk about versatility in terms of the value it brings in case of injury, but that's another thing too. It's where if you have a guy that can fill 10 different roles, well, then you can move him all around, and then you can replace him with another guy who can do 10 different things. And the more guys you can do things like that with, the more confusing it's going to be to an offense that doesn't expect to see all these players out there at the same time, or doesn't expect to see Brian Branch as a middle linebacker or whatever. I mean, wherever you want to put anybody. And it all allows coaches to do what they're trying to do all the time, which is put their best 11 players out there. Sometimes you can't because three of your best 11 players all play the same position. But if those guys can also do other things, well, there you go. Now you can play your best 11. So, yeah, I think that's a reason why we're all a little enamored with Rocky Sin after the training camp he's had.
So wrapping up second segment here, let's talk about ceiling and floor, right? Jeremy, in your opinion, which player is most important for this unit to reach their ceiling? Also, what do you think the ceiling of this team is? And then same thing on the opposite end of that, like who could basically impact them hitting their floor, and what do you think the floor of this defense could be?
Yeah, I think the ceiling is top five. Maybe one. I'd have to go back and look at at their peak last year, they were pretty close to one by almost every defensive metric, whether it's DVOA, EPA, yards, passer rating, whatever. But it's so tough because there's so many. We just submitted our picks for defensive player of the year, and obviously most people I think went with Hutchinson, including myself, but you're also just kind of like, you mentioned Brian Branch, a guy that can do a little bit of everything. He can get involved in the run game. He can get involved in the pass game. He can, catch the ball. Last year it was Kirby Joseph, right? A guy that can turn the game on a dime and end a ball game with a game-sealing catch. And then you have a guy like Jack Campbell, who Dan Campbell said that this is his defense now. He's got the green dot. Like, everything is revolving around him. And it's hard for me to say, what is the difference between a successful and an unsuccessful year for Lions defense. And almost because I just view Hutchinson as like, yeah, he's just going to be Hutchinson. I've no concern about that. So I'm not even factoring him into this question. I think I'm actually going to bring it back to Terrion Arnold, because I think if he's as good as what I think he is and what coaches seem to think he is right now, I think this will be the best secondary in the NFL. And if this team is the best secondary in the NFL, and they do what they do with their secondary with like all this man coverage stuff and funnel the ball to their safeties, that's going to make them be one of the most disruptive teams in football, because quarterbacks are going to have to hold on to the ball longer. When they release the ball, probably going to get tipped, probably going to get intercepted more so than most other teams, and that's going to funnel everything to your defensive line too. And so I think if Terrion has taken the jump that a lot of people think he has, this team is going to hit its ceiling.
Yeah. They finished last year 7th in DVOA on defense. Again, it's just, the first few games you had Aiden Hutchinson. The last few you were scrambling, you were a man with your hair on fire as Aaron Glenn. So I do think the ceiling, I'll go with the ceiling for this defense is number one in the NFL. I think they could be the best defense in the NFL if they don't experience the terrible injury luck that they had. If they get an Aleem McNeil back, who is even 85% of Aleem McNeil, that's just a guy that anybody would be excited getting back, a couple months into the season, where you get him quote unquote fresh, rather than, having to go through all those weeks banged up and all that already puts that mileage on your tires. So the defense could be the best in the NFL. For what Jeremy said, the secondary, I could see it being the best in the NFL. I could see the linebacking unit being the best in the NFL. The defensive line as a whole, I don't know, but Aiden Hutchinson changes all the calculus. A rising tide lifts all boats, and there's a lot of boats on that defense, and Aiden Hutchinson can be that tide in and of itself. So it's the, we're going to talk about it in the third segment with a certain move that a team in the NFC North made, but you get a guy of that caliber who can swing things that way. It makes everybody better. it makes everybody else's job easier. And if some of those guys are as talented as they are, like Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph and DJ Reed and Terry Arnold and Jack Campbell, those guys are all talented players in their own rights. You get Aiden Hutchinson up there making life hard for the quarterback. I don't know. I think they could be the best in the NFL.
I how much Dan Campbell have you been watching lately? Because like I felt myself getting like hyped up in the same way I hear him talk about this team. Because like leading into this segment, I was honestly looking at this defense like, hey, if they're a top 10 defense, like you're great. But hearing you kind of wax poetically like that, Ryan, like it does kind of remind me of like some of the strong takes that I do have about this defense. I do think Jack Campbell is on the cusp of knocking on the door of being at best a Pro Bowl, or I'm sorry, at best an all pro linebacker, at a floor like a Pro Bowl level linebacker this year. I do think Brian Branch takes that jump in being recognized as an all pro safety in the league. I think Kirby continues to trend upward in the way he has. Having Aiden Hutchinson excel at the way he's been excelling, like if he's even what 85% of what he was last year, I think your defense is still significantly better. And all of that to me, and sorry, and not to mention Terry Arnold, DJ Reed, your secondary on as far on the outside being that much more beefed up, like all of a sudden the calculus does kind of point to this being like a number one defense in the league if all of these things hit. So I think if we're talking about the potential ceiling, that is the potential ceiling. If all of those players hit and if all those players are excelling and continuing to get better as they have been, yeah, the Lions could potentially have the best offense and defense in the league. And, you know, we'll talk about this in the next segment, but like, where does that kind of start to push you towards if you do have that kind of football team? And if we're going to talk about players, like, I'm just going to continue to ride the Brian Branch hype train until Brian Branch is universally recognized as the best safety in football. Like, I think he's going to come into this season with like a man on a mission to kind of prove that he can be that guy. And I think Kelvin Shepherd is the perfect defensive coordinator to put him in position to be, you know, to get everything that he needs to get that type of accolades.
It's a good point. He loves him some linebackers.
Wait, did I say Jack Campbell or did I say Brian Branch?
I thought you said Jack Campbell in there. No?
I did mention that I think Jack is going to take a jump to to all pro. I was like, did I rant too much and then I get players mixed up? Well, if that's the case, we're going to take a break right now just so that we can all kind of, again, get ourselves together because we're going to finish this this long podcast up doing some season predictions. So again, where is this team going to end up in the NFC North? Where do we think they end up as far as playoff contention? All of that and a lot more right after this.
All right. We're on break again.
Coco Gauff beat down Osaka.
Really?
Yeah, Osaka 6'3", 6'2". Not even close.
I like them both.
Yeah, I mean, go Osaka.
Your boy Morok, thank you for the 38 months subscribed on Twitch. Says so pumped for Sunday. Man, I'm even pumped for Thursday. I've completely forgotten who's playing. Obviously, it's the Eagles Cowboys.
Yeah.
And who's Friday?
That I don't know.
I feel like the Chiefs
There's
are
a game
on Friday.
There's a game on Friday?
Yeah. International, isn't that a thing? Did
Oh,
I not make that up?
Right. So is it Sao Paulo again? Yeah, it's got to be Kansas City. It's Kansas City and LA, the Chargers.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, if you want some betting advice, I have no idea why Kansas City.
Oh, that's a game on freaking YouTube.
It's on YouTube?
Yeah. I mean, we love YouTube.
Yeah.
Not freaking
sure.
YouTube.
For sure.
Freaking awesome YouTube.
I'm not sure I entirely understand why the Chiefs are only 1.5 point favorites against the Chargers.
Everyone's predicting a big year for the Chargers. I mean, it does feel like there's at least a little bit of this happening. Like they're kind of, I don't think they've crossed yet, but like it feels like they're maybe headed in different directions a little bit.
Yeah, I think losing Rashawn Slater for the entire year sucks though. That hurts.
I kind of forgot about that, to be honest.
Yeah. but I don't know. I think mitigate it, but I'm just saying.
I'm really looking forward to like a key third down happening in that game, and then I'm just like hit with a supplement ad from
Yeah.
YouTube
Mm-hmm.
from Dr. Drew telling me like how if I drink this.
Thought for sure you're gonna be like a Nick the Greek, like Blue Chew or
We got some arguments happening on the YouTube
oh
chat.
yeah.
There was a Packers fan who, I don't know.
Hey, stick around for the third segment. I'm sure you're gonna love everything we say in that. So
Saying all the reasons why the Packers are going to win. Something about I like. Here's how I know he's a troll. He says, "Well, Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs are the best safety and running back in the division."
Hmm.
Hey, both good players.
yeah.
You're muted, Miko. If you're talking to us,
Based on what? I don't like. You can't just say things like that and then like not have like something to like.
Based on NFL top 100 list, Miko.
I got some stats when it comes to those lists. Real for the third segment.
Yeah.
Yeah. In regards to the Micah Parsons trade, but we'll save that.
Wait, is this the same person that's like Packers are a blazing, fast, and physical team?
Yes.
I don't know why he put team in all caps,
Yeah.
as if like Detroit's not a.
Listen,
Oh man.
Packers fan, you can be feeling yourself right now. I get it. You should be. You just got a top 10 player in the NFL. While he's still, what, 26 or something?
Got lots of takes coming in third segment.
27. Doesn't come along very often. But
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but not every
I don't
other
know if
organization
that-
is owned by a lunatic.
I don't know if that puts you over the top. There's a franchise
I mean-
that had him for the past 5-6 years, and how many playoff games did they win with him?
I'm just curious, like
Edge wins. Hashtag Edge wins.
who sat back like when the Packers like when you were like, man, the Packers need to do X, Y, and Z to get better. Who was like, they need another premier pass rusher? Like, cause like I can think of like several other things that I was like, hey, they need to do X, Y, and Z first in order for me to believe.
I think it was on the list, to be honest.
It was that. I think it was. I think it was very important. I think it was very important because, again, I want to talk about this in 10 minutes whenever we get off break.
I know exactly what
I might just like, yeah, I was gonna say I might just tee this one up for you and then just like scoot my chair back. Because like
you
I
can
don't
spout some Rashawn Gary hate is what you're gonna do.
I mean, if there was a day
is
to
it
do
hate
it,
if it's
yeah, is it hate if it's true?
If it's
and then
true.
2, what better day to do this than to do it on Appalachian State Day? To all of you who
is that
celebrate.
this day in history?
Yep.
yeah.
Back when I
18th
was in college.
18th, the 18th anniversary.
Dear Lord.
I think the thing that's funny about that whole thing is like how it still stings people. Like
I mean, like, I'm not
Like-
even a Michigan fan, but like I said on Twitter, I remember exactly the part of the sidewalk that I was on when I heard the radio call in the parked car, like in front of my friend's apartment building. Like, I remember exactly where I was. And I remember him like dropping to his knees because he was a Michigan fan. Like, I remember that entire scene. I feel like I know what, like, I could tell you how hot it was outside. I could tell you like how sunny it was. I can tell you so many things about that moment, not even being a Michigan
Colors
fan.
were brighter for you that day.
But I remember where I was like when the kick six happened. Like I remember like the
Yeah.
the living room that I was in and everything, right? So it's just like one of those like sports moments that
Even-
Jeremy, I'm sure you
I-
remember what seat you were in.
That's how I feel about with Trouble with the Snap though. Like I remember every detail of Trouble with the Snap.
That's a little bit more hazy just because I was in Ann Arbor and I was celebrating. So
two, two things. One, I was not in the seat during the Appalachian State. I was already headed up the concourse. Like I was so pissed about the game that I was like, I just turned to watch it go in and then I left. Like I was already halfway up the stairs.
oh no.
Trouble with Snap hurts me more. I don't know why. Like it's weird because I was at Michigan when App State happened, so I was a bigger Michigan football fan than I was when Trouble with the Snap happened. I think the reason Trouble with the Snap happened is it hurts more is because it's Michigan State, and I know a lot of people, and they continue to like App State guys aren't like twisting the knife still.
Sure. Right. Yeah. But I mean, there isn't like anytime something crazy happens, there isn't Surrender Cobra. You know what I mean?
And
I think that didn't they get coined after that game?
I'm pretty sure like that. Yeah, that like became Surrender Cobra.
yeah, and that was even. I can't think of a lot of examples in which a game was over, like over, that you still lost.
Like mismanagement of your football team over, right? Like
everything. Like even if that happens, what are the chances that you bobble a punt and that ends in a touchdown for the other team? Like there are a lot of blocked punts. There are a lot of like, okay, he picks it up and he shanks it for 10 yards, or he gets tackled.
All of those things are a Michigan win though,
right?
Like in my opinion. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
absolutely.
You needed that very specific thing
Exactly.
to happen in order for them to lose the game.
Like even when he's bobbling that punt, I am not concerned that they're going to lose that game.
Yeah, you're just like throw it. Like,
like,
I don't-
When were you like no, it's over? Like was it like as soon as
I don't know. It's hard to
blacked
say.
out.
I certainly remember the living room I was in, and I feel like at the time I was just like the Joker laughing, just like that level of madness where just like what else can I do but laugh at this? This is insane. But here's the thing that I don't remember. I don't remember in the context of the year how important that was. Was it nothing? Did it not matter? Did it cost Michigan anything? I have no idea.
I don't remember that level of detail. Like I said, I remember where I was. I remember that entire day because I think it was like on Sweetest Day. So like me and my wife were supposed to go out to dinner. And I'm like trying to watch the game like as much as I can before we have to go to dinner. And the game's not like it's highly competitive, but it's not going the way I wanted to. So I already wasn't like in a great mood. And then we got to dinner. We went to Bria, which is like some like Italian restaurant. And we're like where we're sitting, like there's a TV nearby. I can hear the TV, but like I can't like turn and watch it because I'm also like, hey, I'm supposed to be having dinner with my wife.
Yeah.
This would be grounds for divorce if I try and watch this game. And I didn't see the play happen, but I heard like the oh, and I looked at my wife and I was like, I gotta go see what this is. And I literally got up from the table, walked over to like the bar area where there was like a group of people watching, and the mixed reactions of like just pure joy and the people that were like, my night is now ruined was hilarious.
All right. So, did anybody in chat remind Jeremy of the context for this or no?
I know, but I pulled it up myself, and this was an absolutely
This was a
pivotal
massive
game for both teams. An absolutely pivotal game for both teams.
It was number 7 Michigan State versus number 12 Michigan.
Is that right? Something like that, yeah.
This was Jim Harbaugh's first year as head coach. I'm looking at Michigan's schedule too. They were coming off of beating BYU 31-0, beating Maryland 28-0, beating Northwestern,
Ranked Northwestern,
ranked 13th Northwestern 38-0. And then they lost to Little Brother. And then they lost to Little Brother on the most insane end of it's art. I mean, I don't know. It's definitely in the pantheon of
Right. Like this,
single plays.
if you were to, I don't even think there's a Lions game you can compare it to. Like, I know the Lions have some pretty ridiculous ways to lose, including a 66-yard field goal and the phantom face mask.
I was gonna say
and
that
all
that might be one. The Justin
Aaron-
Tucker field goal.
Yeah, but like the stakes weren't very high.
Yeah, but like I just remember being like, okay, we're finally gonna get one.
They're finally going to win a game.
Like that's like that,
Yeah.
and it was just like once that happened, it was like 0-16 felt real. And I was just like, I don't want to do this again.
I get your point though, Jeremy, because when you think about the Rodgers Hail Mary, the takeaway from that is, you know what I mean?
Right,
Where it's
yes.
just like Matthew Stafford is just like, we can't catch a freaking break, you know?
Right. Right.
Versus that happens in that Michigan game, and it's like, you're just like laughing like the Joker, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, how? Like that one thing?
That's insane.
Because at least with that Hail Mary thing, it was like the penalty that led to the thing that, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
up until the Lions playoff win, I don't think I had been happier
Right.
watching sports than that moment. And it wasn't even like for a champion. It was just like beating.
But
your
here's
rival.
the thing: Michigan State won the Big Ten that year.
Oh, it's not like they weren't like a good football team.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
but I'm saying like this is how pivotal the game was.
Oh yeah, it mattered big
If
time.
they didn't win that game, they don't even go to the Big Ten championship. Ohio State does, or maybe I don't know. I guess Ohio State still would if Michigan was given that win, because yeah,
That was the year Michigan State beat Iowa in
Yeah.
the Big Ten championship. That was a fun one too.
Okay,
another
so-
another.
So I mean, if you don't have trouble with the snap, then you don't get Alex Reno celebrating Michigan State beating
True.
Iowa.
We'll spare everyone the gory details of that night for Alex Reno.
Yeah, I mean, but like anybody would be able to deduce what would happen if you drank 6 dirty bastards in one sitting.
Man.
Oh man is right. Should we do the third segment?
Let's do that, because I don't have any more alerts, and we're already how deep into this show? 2 hours almost on the dot. Morgan
Yeah.
is in our live YouTube chat taking it to the Packers fan.
Oh,
By the way,
I'm so sorry for that Packers fan. You woke up the wrong one. So you found a man that had time today. He ain't got to work. That baby's probably sleeping good. Morgan's got time.
all right. Let's get into some predictions.
All right. And welcome back to segment 3 of the Pride of Detroit PODcast. Guys, we're going to put a nice bow on this podcast talking season predictions. So let's start it off talking about just kind of putting a comparison between the two units that we talked about. We talked about the offense, we talked about the defense. When you look at them both, Jeremy, I'm going to start with you. Which unit do you have the most confidence heading into the season with?
Oh man, it's a really good question, because I almost feel more confident in the stability of the defense from year to year, because I think the transition from Glenn to Shepard is going to be easy and subtle and not that much different. And I don't think there's going to be a ton of difference on the offense either, but there's just a little bit more wavering in terms of the offensive line uncertainty, in terms of the play calling on offense, but there's still way more talent on offense. To me, failure on offense is not an option. Like it would have to be the result of either a massive amount of injuries or something that we're not even thinking about for the offense to not be great this year. So ultimately I'm going to fall on offense, just because you have the best right tackle in football. You have a top 5 receiver. You have a top 5 running back. You have a top 5 tight end. You have another wide receiver who might knock on the door of top 20 or top 10. You have another receiver who's a young guy who's only going to get better as the season is going on. You still have a couple of really good offensive linemen outside of your top one right tackle. And so I just don't know how that fails. Even with some of the offensive line uncertainties and ups and downs that they'll suffer early in the season, that is a unit to me that can't fail. I should also say a top 10 quarterback. I feel like I leave him out of the conversation far too often. A top 10 quarterback, arguably a top 15 player according to NFL players, apparently.
I was going to say you saved yourself from being yelled at in the comment section because someone was going to be like, and he didn't name Jared Goff.
Yeah, I mean, it goes without saying, though, if you name all those things before you get to the quarterback, I mean, what does that say?
Stop it.
Can you make me not have to fight with people in the comment section? I don't want to have to do that.
What about you, Miko? Who do you have more confidence in? Offense, defense, special teams? We should have really threw special teams into this too, but
will there be a fourth segment for special teams? Just keep hitting the play button and waiting for it to show up.
Surprisingly, I'm going to go with the defense. I have a little more confidence in the defense heading into this season for no other reason than I just think that they're going to be like a group on a mission. Like the fact that they had to deal with so many injuries and still played at such a high level. Like I think there's going to be a little bit of like, yeah, watch us now. Like watch us when we're healthy. See what we can actually do when we're firing on all cylinders. And kind of like we talked about in the last segment, like I do expect a lot of these guys to make a really big jump, whether it's in their second year, their third year, their fourth year, whatever the case may be. Like I see a lot of guys really helping this defense climb to new heights. I think, Jeremy, you make another good point when you talk about the fact that it is going to be a seamless transition or a fairly seamless transition between, Aaron Glenn's philosophy and Kelvin Shepherd's philosophy. And I think we're going to see that fairly early in the season. But another reason why I'm going to lean the defense, and this is, I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not saying that like this was a terrible decision or anything like that. But I do wonder like how long it may take things for Johnny Morton and this offense to get like clicking when you haven't had like live bullets like all preseason. And not to say that's going to impact where you end at the beginning of the season, but I just wonder like how clunky things might look early on. And I just kind of don't have those concerns for the defense, even though the defense is in a similar boat where they haven't had a lot of their starters play. I just think like the defensive players are just going to be able to just pin their ears back and do what they do best a little bit easier. So I tend to lean more so on the defensive side. What about you, Ryan?
Well, I mean, how could you have more trust in the defense? Brad Holmes didn't go out and get anybody opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. I don't know how you have all of that faith in something so neglected, Miko. I think it's the defense for me. Like, I think the defense, like you pointed out, has a lot to prove. Aiden Hutchinson on a mission. I really like even the depth moves they made, right? And that was arguably where you were most concerned about the Lions by the time the season got to its tail end was who's playing linebacker, who's playing cornerback, So they have the depth, I think, addressed at positions that they did not last year when it comes to linebacker, when it comes to, spots in the secondary. It's just that defensive line. And if you're asking me, do I have more faith in the defensive line than I do in the offensive line? I would say that I have a little bit more faith in the defensive line than I do in the offensive line at this point. But I think that was one of the most underrated aspects of a pretty boring Dan Campbell press conference, Jeremy, that you pointed out. It's not about how they're doing in September. The thing that's a good thing that sounds like a bad thing is that there's so much room to grow.
Yeah.
Right. And then that might be that might not be where you want this team to be right now, heading into week one. But ultimately, I think it's a good thing. But yeah, I think it's the defense. So I'm with you, Miko.
All right, let's look at this division because we all know that at the end of the day, if you want to, punch your ticket to the playoffs, it has to start in the division. You have to be able to, if not win your division, which would be the most optimal, you have to at least perform well. Looking at the NFC North, how do you guys think things will shake out? Ryan, I'll start with you first.
Well, it's really a question of how much do we think a highly paid pass rusher is going to impact the landscape, right? Like I think that it's tough. I know we did our preview podcast, our series where we were ranking kind of all the different positional units in the NFC North specifically. I, I think I came away from that discussion still thinking that the Vikings were probably the second best team in the division. I think that might change based on Micah Parsons heading to Green Bay. I just don't know if it makes the Packers the bona fide favorites. And for all of the, oh, look at what's happened with the Vegas line and the Packers are the new favorites and like, I mean, dumb people have money too, and they can they can make bets that aren't great, right?
I
Like
would argue some of the dumbest people have a lot of money.
I mean, not going to get any pushback from me on that. I guess I want to ask you guys that. Like, is Micah Parsons enough for you to reconsider the pecking order in the NFC North?
No. And I don't know if that's like I don't know if that's controversial or not. But I still feel like Minnesota is that team. And it's not by a wide margin. It's very close. And I think unfortunately it's probably going to come down to which of their quarterbacks plays better is
Yeah.
going to really dictate who I think is going to be the second best. Like Micah does help their pass rush, undoubtedly. But the issue that I still have with Green Bay's defense has now become twofold because it used to just be like, hey, who are you going to get to cover some of these talented wide receivers that are in your division? Like I'm not even just talking about Detroit with Amon Ra, J-Mo, Sam Laporta, Jameer Gibbs. Like I'm not even just talking about them. You still have to contend with Minnesota that has Justin Jefferson, who will eventually have Jordan Addison back, who will have a TJ Hawkinson. You have to deal with the Bears and their plethora of pass catchers. Yes, Micah Parsons will make things a little bit easier, but you still, like I said to you guys before we started the podcast, I couldn't name a corner that they had over there. Like in being fully honest and not trying to throw shade. But then on top of that, you traded away Kenny Clark, so now you're also like compromised in the run game as well. So while Minnesota has their flaws as well, one thing I expect with a Brian Flores led defense is that they're going to find ways of making it work. It may not be the most optimal, it may not make a bunch of sense statistically. They're going to get stuff done defensively regardless of the names that are over there, Jeremy. So like that's why for me it doesn't really change a whole lot. It can, but I don't think Micah Parsons is going to be the determining factor for me.
No, I mean, I think Minnesota and Green Bay were close going into this, and so I could see why maybe this pushes Green Bay ahead of Minnesota. But I think you pointed it out right there. 3 teams in the NFC North have quarterback questions. And I know Packers fans would probably push back and say, no, it's only 2. But I think Jordan Love has a little bit something to prove after last year. He does. And obviously the Bears and the Vikings are still waiting to see what they have in their quarterbacks. Some might say there's some questions about Jared Goff because he can't win the big game despite the fact that he got them on the verge of the Super Bowl 2 years ago. And the reason why they didn't get there was not his fault. But here's why I don't think any of this, the Micah Parsons move, or any of this has moved anyone off the lines from that top spot. Because this is a team game. The reason why the Packers have to make a Micah Parsons type of move is because they weren't able to get as many blue chip players as the Lions already have. The Lions can't make this move because they have so many blue chip players. The Packers can because they don't. And let me just, in case you think, no, they're on the same level of blue chip players, I gathered 4 different top 100 type lists from this year and just show you where they're at. So the NFL top 100, the one that's voted on the players in the middle of last season, probably the least liked one, least respected one. Lions at 7, top 100 players. Packers at 5, including Micah Parsons. Vikings at 5. Bears at 0.
Ooh, that's surprising though. I can't believe Jalen Johnson didn't make the list. But again, that's
Yeah.
why this list isn't very respected.
Right. PFF did a top 50 list. 50, so now we're talking like super blue chip players. The Lions have 4. Packers have 2. Vikings have 1. Bears have 0. So the Lions have more than the rest of the division combined. 4 versus 3 for the rest of the division. The ESPN top 10 positions as voted on by the front office lists.
Mhm.
So this is, combining all of those, Lions have 8, Packers have 4, Bears have 3, Vikings have 3. Lions have double anyone else in the division. And then ESPN put out their own top 100, which was just a panel of ESPN analysts. Lions, 8 top 100 players, Packers 3, Vikings 2, Bears 2. Lions have more than the rest of the division combined. 8-7 for the rest of the division. It is not close in terms of overall talent. The Lions are still massively above everyone else, especially if you're talking just that top tier talent, which, let's be honest, those guys are pretty darn important to winning in the league. And so you can say 2 through 4 or however order you want them to be. If you're Adam Rank, you can put the Bears 1 because you do every year. But if you are looking at this as objectively as you possibly can, with Micah Parsons, the Packers still are not on the Lions level.
Yeah. Well, the reason they have to make this trade is because they drafted Lucas Van Ness 13th overall in the 2023 draft, and that so far has been a swing and a miss. Rashawn Gary was a force to be dealt with, and an ACL injury in 2022, and things look a little bit different for him now, right? Like I think the other thing to consider too is the Packers with their new defensive coordinator last year.
Yep.
Maybe it was a shakeup, right? Maybe it's, learning a new system, getting yourself put together in that scheme. Again, though, like while I think like Micah might move the Packers ahead of the Vikings, I think I trust Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores more than I trust Matt LaFleur and I'm blanking on the Packers defensive coordinator.
Hafley.
Hafley, yeah. So the Packers had to make this move because of Jeremy's point. Like they didn't draft Aiden Hutchinson. They haven't drafted a pass rusher that makes a difference. Should they have made this trade? I don't know. Do I think that the Dallas Cowboys could have gotten more for Micah Parsons? Potentially. And I'm not even trying to scoff at what the Packers had to give up. Like Kenny Clark matters. Nobody has played more run defense snaps along that defensive line than Kenny Clark has for the past 4 years, right? Nobody has generated more pressures for the interior of that defensive line since 2018 than Kenny Clark, right? So like you're trading a plus player. Kenny Clark plays on 32 of 32 football teams. Like I think that lost in the minutia of Micah Parsons and just a couple of draft picks and Kenny Clark. Like Kenny Clark's a contributor. Kenny Clark's not a nobody. Like Kenny Clark against Micah Parsons, yeah, you're picking Micah Parsons 10 times out of 10. It's also the long-term things, right? Like this feels like a very desperate move for a team that doesn't generally operate under desperation. And that stands in stark opposition to the way that Brad Holmes has treated this entire saga for 2 years about the Lions need somebody opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. Like it doesn't matter if it's the opposite of him. It could be right next to him, right? Like that's why they paid Aleem McNeil. Like if you could say, well, the Lions could get Chris Jones, people would be all about that. It doesn't matter if he plays defensive end. It doesn't matter as long as it's getting pressure on the quarterback. And again, my question then to Packers fans would be, well, when are you guys going to get somebody opposite of Micah Parsons? Because Levi Onwuzurike had 45 pressures last season. Aleem McNeil in his shortened time only had 45 pressures. The next man up for pressures along that Packers defensive line was Rashawn Gary at 47. So when will the Packers finally get somebody opposite of Micah Parsons? And maybe your argument is, okay, well now Micah Parsons is there and that's going to provide more one-on-one opportunities for Rashawn Gary. I could see that potentially being a problem for Taylor Decker. Like Taylor Decker has struggled with Rashawn Gary in the past. But I mean, guys, they're spending 23% of their cap in 2027 on Jordan Love and Micah Parsons. Almost a quarter of their cap is wrapped up in one player I know is awesome. Like Micah Parsons, I know for sure is a difference maker. I don't know, and I'm not doing a shtick right now, and I even have a little bit of leeway because Jeremy was like, "Well, hey, like 3 teams in the NFC North have questions at quarterback." I I feel like I still need to see a lot more out of Jordan Love before I'm ready to say, you know what, I put all my eggs in the basket of the team that is the first in NFL history to be spending over $100 million annually on 2 players in Micah Parsons and Jordan Love.
I think an argument could also be made that Green Bay also still has questions at wide receiver,
Oh, I
right?
mean, more than just questions. I mean,
So,
Jaden Reed has been playing all training camp on a Jones fracture. Christian Watson is coming back from his ACL injury. So your number one receiver is Matthew Golden. All right, come on down, man. Like, let's see it right from day one. You need to be the dude in this offense.
and so I think we all kind of are in agreement here, right? Like, could there be an argument made for why Green Bay should be able to jump Minnesota for the 2 spot? Maybe. But like Jeremy said, it's not even close though when it comes down to that comparison of talent and what Detroit is currently going into the season with. So for me personally, like, yeah, I would still expect it. I mean, if everything played out ideally, you got Detroit at 1, Minnesota probably at 2, Green Bay at 3, and Chicago bringing up the rear.
The only thing I'll say in Green Bay's defense here is that they're also an incredibly young team. There are some young players on that team that could make the jump into that, top 100 discussion. They've got, I'm going to forget everybody's name here because I'm just now getting into like game week mode and all that sort of stuff. But like the safety next to Xavier McKinney is very good. There's a linebacker that's young and promising.
Yeah,
They've got
Cooper.
Yeah, Cooper, exactly. They got a couple guys on the offensive line that probably deserve a little bit more credit. Like Zach Tom, I think, is a really good right tackle that still doesn't have enough people who are giving him credit. At the same time, though, even doing all of that, I still think the roster is just not where the Lions is currently at.
All right, so let's talk season predictions, ceiling and floor. Ryan, I'll start with you. Where do you think the ceiling record-wise is for the Detroit Lions in 2025?
I feel just 2 things. One, the schedule, I think, is so darn tough. And I'm not trying to build in excuses, but one thing you consider is the schedule. The second thing you consider is do the Lions treat this more like Jeremy mentioned Dan Campbell's comments? Do they treat it more like a marathon than they treat it like a sprint, right? Is it more important to win 10 or 11 games and have everybody relatively healthy than to push the limits and try to get the number 1 seed in the NFC North? I think we saw how that played out in a really, dramatic and hyper realized version of that in last season. But I think those 2 things considered, I really kind of feel like their ceiling is 12 wins. I'm not sure I could see them winning more than 12 football games on this schedule. I do think that the floor, provided that nothing catastrophic happens, I feel like they're a 9-win football team as their floor. 9 wins may or may not get you into the playoffs. But again, that's what I think the floor is. So I think somewhere between like 9 to 12 wins is where I would expect the Detroit Lions to be.
Jeremy, how about you?
I mean, I think I would take those numbers and just bump them up a little bit. I still think at the worst, this team is going to be a 10-win team. I just think there's too much talent. A 10-7 team, I feel like we're almost getting a little bit spoiled and thinking like, oh, that's a pretty disappointing season. Like 10-7 is probably going to get you into the playoffs. And in certain crappy divisions, that could also win you the division. If you're in the, I don't know,
Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
The NFC South. That's right. NFC or AFC South, pretty much. It's just been those Southern teams for whatever reason.
The South wins again.
I would maybe push the ceiling of this team. I almost want to say 14, maybe 13. And just because it can happen. I don't think it will. But when you're talking about each individual game, the Lions are going to be favored in most of them. And when you talk about, I mean, how many duds have we seen out of a Dan Campbell team since 2022. Since they had that turnaround in 2022. Not a lot, right?
Like since then, or count 2022?
Don't count the first half.
Don't count the Panthers game.
Don't count the Panthers game. That's but it feels like that's the last one where it just
The Ravens,
just
the
didn't
Ravens
have
game
it.
in 2023.
Yes, that is true.
But
That's probably the last one.
yeah, I'm not sure there's another game where you can say they showed up and they were so ill prepared.
Right.
I mean, the Commanders game.
So
Different set of circumstances. But
so if this team is going to be in essentially every game they're going to play in, and they know how to operate late games quite well, they tend to win more than they don't when it's close. To me, you can still have that ceiling of a very high win total. Now, it does not happen very often. I was trying to look at my own tweet from a couple weeks ago, because, Bill Barnwell picked the Lions to regress because every 15-win team regresses mathematically. It just, in the past 20 years, I'm pretty sure only one team did not regress in terms of their wins after winning 14 or 15 games, and that was a Patriots team that I think went 15-1 back-to-back years.
I mean, that's quite a headline.
Right.
What regression?
Right. But the positive side of that research that I found was that, 75% of them won at least 11 games the next year.
Mm.
And so it's not like these teams dropped off a cliff. This team is not dropping off a cliff.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I think 10-7 is has to be pretty dang close to the floor of this team, and I still think they could win. I'll say it. I think they can win 14 games.
Yeah, I'm kind of more in lockstep with you, Jeremy, where the floor is definitely 10 for me. And where I'm most comfortable, if anyone were to just ask me on the street, I would tell you 12, right? That's just where I'm most comfortable is as the ceiling. But if I feel so comfortable at 12, why not 13? And I think that's one of those where it's I do think the Lions could potentially win 13 games. I think once you get north of 13, it becomes less tangible. You're talking about capturing lightning in a bottle twice, in my opinion. And last season was so surreal. They racked up 15 wins, and by the end of it, it didn't feel real that they actually won 15 games. And not to mention that it probably should have been 16 if they had, actually got, converted a touchdown in the red zone against Tampa Bay. It's those types of splitting hairs, but I agree with you in the sense that I don't think this team regresses as long as your key players are healthy, right? Obviously if something drastic happens, yeah, things can potentially just implode in that regard. But if everything is relatively smooth, yeah, I think you're looking at a 13-win football team, and in worst case scenario, a 10-win football team.
I think just looking at the schedule, I think there's 4 games that I just, because you can go down the list, right? You can go down the entire schedule and you can say win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, whatever. But I think there's just 4 games that if the Lions win one of those games, then yeah, I think they could be a 13-win football team. But I kind of err on the side of caution where I'm okay, at Baltimore, that's a tough game. At Kansas City, that's a tough game. At Philadelphia, that's a tough game. At Washington, that's a tough game. At Minnesota on Christmas Day, that's going to be a tough game with probably, playoff implications. There's a lot of, the road schedule, it's been documented. It might be the toughest in modern football. That's why I'm just man, 13 wins. The way we're talking, it's don't sound spoiled. Don't be oh yeah,
right.
13 wins. It can make it happen. Winning 13 games is so hard. And I'm not saying that we sound like that. I'm saying that ultimately my big takeaway is what Jeremy said, where it's I don't think I have a massive amount of confidence that Dan Campbell will not let this team fall off a cliff.
Right.
And it all comes back to that opening press conference of last training camp, where he was talking about that New York Giants football team that he was on, where we were awesome. We went to the Super Bowl. We brought pretty much everybody back. And then we fell on our face. And we didn't even make the playoffs next year because we didn't treat the season and getting up for it and getting prepared for it. We didn't treat it the same way. I don't think Dan Campbell's going to let this team happen to them.
No, and I think that's where Brad Holmes comments about the standard being the standard rings true.
Yeah,
Like
that
not
too.
just
Mhm.
not just about like the construction of the roster, but there's a standard on preparing. There's a standard on like how you perform on game day. There's like that's something to your point, Ryan. I don't think Dan Campbell's willing to let slip and let slide just because they've had a few years of success. The standard is the standard. And
Yeah.
if you're not willing to meet that standard, the Lions will find somebody that will.
Right. I found my stat real quick. Since 2000, there have been 16 teams that have won at least 14 games in a season. 0 of them improved on their record. Only one matched it. 2003, 2004 Patriots. 12 of those 16, so exactly 75% of them, won at least 11 games the following year.
Yeah. And some of those teams didn't have 17 games to play.
Right. Most of them didn't.
Yeah.
So anyone expecting like a huge drop off, like if this team is not 500, something out of their control went wrong.
Because that's the other thing that Barnwell brought up too, though, right? Is like the regression in one-score games. Like how many one-score games did the Lions win, right? And I think that stat can be a little misleading sometimes, right? Like we talked about this on an earlier podcast, but like that Cardinals game never felt like it was not in the Lions' control, right?
Right.
Like there's plenty of games where like things didn't feel like it was outside the Lions' control and may have ended up a one-score game, right? That stat I think can be a little misleading sometimes. So
Yeah, and
It's always
Barnwell's article was like, yeah, I think they'll regress, but I still think they're going to win 12 games. Like that,
Yeah.
that was it. It was like, okay, all right, I'll take
All right.
that.
That's fine.
12-5, sure.
that's why it's important to watch film though. Like, right? Like that's why it's important to watch the games because like you can't just throw that out there and be like, one score games. But it's like, yeah, but what did those one score games actually look like?
yeah,
in-
what they
in-
feel
in the-
like.
So, all right, final question here. We got to talk postseason. How deep do you guys think? Do you think the Lions will make the postseason? Which again, we all picked them to win double-digit games, so it feels like we are. But if that's the case, how far into the playoffs do you think they make it this season? Jeremy, let's start with you.
All right. I haven't yet like formulated my full predictions. I know I required everyone on staff to send me theirs by now. I haven't made mine because I'm a hypocrite. But here's what I'll say. I think the Lions are probably a top 3 team in the conference, probably a top 5 team in the NFL. But I do think the NFC is having a bit of a resurgence right now. I do think the Eagles are going to remain the team to beat because that's just how Super Bowl champions work. I think, depending on someone dealing with their own epidurals, Matthew Stafford could have that team in a Super Bowl, could have them, outside of it. I do think the division's better. I do think there are other teams that are kind of waiting in the wings there. But I think unless something goes wrong this season, that at the very least they should make the NFC Championship game. And if I have them going that far and I'm a Lions fan, why stop there? Let's say the Lions are going to make the Super Bowl, and I'm not going to tell you who's going to win the Super Bowl at this point in the year. But yeah, I mean, listen, Super Bowl should be the expectation. NFC Championship should be the absolute minimum this season. And so I'll leave it at that.
I love it. I love how you were like building to it, and I was like, oh, he's gonna stop just short of the Super Bowl. And he didn't.
No.
And neither will the Lions, because that's where I have them going to. I have them going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like it just again, I don't know how you can't quantify feeling, Ryan. You can't quantify like just belief in that way, but it does just feel like this team has gotten so close so many times that it just feels like they're ready to kind of just break through to that next level. I think last year losing to the Commanders was a realization that like, hey, you can't, just because your record says you're something doesn't mean that you can just waltz your way into a Super Bowl. You have to go out there and prove it every single day. And it's well documented. Yeah, injuries played a part in that. But if this team is able to be healthier than they were last season, like I do think that they can contend, and I do think that they can be a more complete, competent team that can kind of, like I said, punch their ticket to the Super Bowl. So I'm saying Super Bowl.
I think the defining characteristic of this season will ultimately be playoff success, right? Because I think we learned that last season. Like the defining characteristic of last season was, well, what kind of success will you have in the playoffs? Since they didn't have that, last season truly felt like a failure. Um, it stung in a different way though because of injuries. If the Lions are healthy at the right time, they have the talent of a Super Bowl contending team. I think that they will. I think they'll be in the NFC Championship game. Like I want to say that they'll get to the Super Bowl, but there are just teams in the NFC that I think are legitimate competition. I think a lot of people are kind of poo-pooing on the NFC, right? I mean, I still think the Eagles are legit. I still think that if Matthew Stafford is healthy, the Rams are a legitimate threat to the Lions. Um,
Commanders, obviously, right?
yeah, even the Commanders to some respect as well. So yeah, I'll put it at conference championship game. And if they make the conference championship game, then I'm satisfied. You know, there's room to like,
Mm-hmm.
blow my socks off, but like, a conference championship, appearance is just fine and dandy for me.
I think the thing that'll make this season so fun to watch, in addition to just, I mean, again, football being back, is that like those teams that you mentioned, the Lions play those teams in the regular season,
They
and
do.
they play them at times where like those games will still matter. It's not like you play them super early in the season and it's like, whatever, if you lose this game, it means nothing. Like you're playing the Eagles in November, you're playing the Commanders, I think late November, early December type of timing. You're playing the Rams, later in the season. So like
You're playing the
if
Packers
it,
on Thanksgiving.
Cut your
right.
teeth.
So if we're talking about, you guys both mentioned it like in regards to like, hey, if Dan Campbell has this big picture of like, hey, like let's just make sure we're right come playoff time, you'll have a good measuring stick of like where you stand against these teams, and you should have a better idea if you have to see any of them again in the postseason, how to right that ship or how to continue the success that you had maybe the first time around. So that's pretty much going to do it for this, Lions season preview, guys. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to, listen. Jeremy, any announcements or
We sure
anything like that
do.
for our listeners?
I know you have an announcement. Before that, just to kind of lay the table for this week, since this one's going out early in the week, we didn't do a midweek mailbag last week for our subscribers, so we're going to do that this week. So there won't be a midweek mailbag on the podcast feed this week, but we will get that kicked off next week. And then also, if you miss First Bite, that is also a Pride of Detroit direct subscription thing, and we already have our guest book for week 1. If you've listened to you listened to First Bite for a long time, you probably know who that guest is already. But if you want that, go to prideofdetroit.com/subscribe. But Mika, we aren't leaving the people that can't subscribe to the newsletter empty-handed when it comes to preview podcasts this year, are we?
We are not. We are actually dropping a new preview podcast over here on Pride of Detroit. That will be called Before the Roar, and that will feature myself, Morgan Cannon, and a rotating third guest. That third guest this upcoming week will be Brandon Knapp. So again, super excited to kind of get this started and really looking forward to starting this new podcast. We'll be recording every Wednesday, so you should probably expect it in your feeds every Thursday morning. So really excited to be dropping that with, again, different members of the POD staff. But for those of you that have grown accustomed to seeing Morgan and myself over on YouTube, you'll get to now hear us in a podcast over here on Pride of Detroit.
Very excited to check that out myself.
All right. Well, guys, that's pretty much going to do it for this podcast. Again, season kicks off Sunday. Lions play the Green Bay Packers at 4:25, which technically is like 4:30, basically. Afternoon game. So expect the next podcast to be Monday, maybe Sunday night, depending on timing and whatnot.
That's right.
So with all that said, I'm Miko. He's Jeremy. He's Ryan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch and listen. And we'll see you guys in the next one.
Recording stopped.
There we go. All right. Tridently, Thank you for following us on Twitch. And that is the only alert I got, which means we can probably wrap this up relatively quickly since we've been live for 2.5 hours here. Sorry to Tigers fans. Spoiler alert, they didn't win.
Womp womp.
But they're making the playoffs. It's fine.
Yeah. It's like it's how you'll feel about a Lions loss.
Right. Yeah, it's not like the playoffs. What they do in the playoffs is really all that matters.
Yeah.
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 What would the start of the season have to look like for you to have like a little bit of panic set in?
Well, so I was looking at the schedule, obviously.
It'd be terrible to start 0-2.
Right.
But
that would be bad.
Depending on how that Bears game looks in the way they lose, would, like, if they get smoked and, you know, the offense isn't clicking, the defense has trouble, maybe I'm concerned. But I don't know. I don't like this question, Miko. Why are you trying to set me on edge right now? Why are you trying to wet blanket this group?
Because we all know, like, again, love this fan base, but we all know, like, if certain things, like you said, if they lose those first two, like, it's going to be a little bit of pandemonium.
Oh man, I mean, if they lose those first two, you're going into Monday Night Football at Baltimore for the third game.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like everyone's going to be like getting ready to hop over the rail.
It might happen after week 1. Like, if we all realize that if they lose to the Packers, week 2 to some people will become my favorite term in September.
Must win.
A must win.
A must-win game, which is ridiculous. You can't start the season 0-2 in the division. You just can't.
Oh man, but I feel like there's almost a 0% chance of them losing those first two games.
You mean both of them, not one individually?
Yeah, they'll walk out of that at least 1-1.
Yeah, I would hope so.
I'll say, for me to be panicked, Miko, they're 2-5 going into the bye week.
Yeah. Because you're already 7 games into the season, and now you're talking about essentially you need to run the table.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, like, I mean, like, 2-5 like sounds like, oh man, how could they possibly go 2-5? Well, if they split between Green Bay and Chicago, and they beat Cleveland, here are the other games that they would have to win to prevent themselves from going 2-5. They'd have to beat Green Bay in week 1, beat Baltimore at Baltimore on Monday night, beat Cincinnati at Cincinnati, beat Kansas City at Kansas City, or then beat Tampa Bay Monday Night Football.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough start to the schedule.
That's tough. Like those 7 games really define stuff, man. I mean, if they're 3-4 going into the bye week, I don't feel terrible about it, because when you pivot out of it, yeah, it's a gauntlet. It's Minnesota, Washington, Philadelphia.
Right.
But then you get, like, you have your week against New York, and you have your week against Dallas, and you'll have your week against Pittsburgh. Like,
I like that Dallas has now entered that conversation. Maybe they were already in that conversation, but they're definitely there now.
I'll say that I think Dallas's offense could be good. I think Dallas's offense, like, could be, like, legit good.
Yeah.
Which just, again, boggles my mind that they would not get something done with one of the top 3 defensive players in football.
I think.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Good.
I was just going to say, the thing that I think you're pointing out is that as long as the Lions don't go like 0% in their quote unquote like 50-50 games, they're going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
But they realistically have to go 500 in those 50-50 games at least, because they only have 4 games where you're like, oh, they should win that game, like, comfortably.
Yeah. I mean, I think most people know that, like, or most people should know, like, it's not necessarily, like, obviously you want the win, right?
Right.
Yeah,
but
I like
especially
wins,
early, but especially early in the season, like, it really does come down to, like, how do they look? Like, if they, like you guys kind of said, like, if those first 2 games and, like, the offense isn't clicking, like the defense has no answer for Jordan Love and Caleb Williams all of a sudden, like that'd be a little like I'd be panicking more so just like on how they look, not necessarily like the fact that they lost. Like, hey, like if you can't corral those two quarterbacks, what the hell are you supposed to do against Lamar Jackson?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, look no further than week 2 last year, right? The red zone offense is terrible. Why is Jared Goff throwing the ball 55 times, right? Like, I mean, that was week 2 of last year.
Yeah.
But like that was a game though, like that's a prime example of a game that like when it ended, you were like, oh, we lost. That didn't feel like we should have like that didn't feel like it was like out of reach though. Like
Right.
it just
Didn't feel like it was off the
that was
rails.
like that was the definition of man, we just need to execute better. Like it's such coach speak, but like that was a prime example of like you were getting the ball in the red zone. Aiden had like what 4 sacks that game?
Something like that. Yeah, like 3 or 4, something like that. But
There were a few questions about like Jared Goff starts the season though, right? Like
yeah,
through the first 2 games, I think like his PFF grade was like 52, and things just looked off with him. And I remember being like, "Wait, Jared Goff has been playing really good football for like a season and a half. I'm not ready to believe that it was all a mirage." And sure enough, he goes out there and
next few games, right?
yeah, immediately rights the ship.
I have 9 games circled on their schedule that are 50-50 games.
Are there any?
That sounds about right.
I feel like it should be higher, honestly. Like
Yeah.
So do the remaining? What is that? 7, 8
8.
should wins?
I don't think the 8s are should wins, but I think like the other 8 are like they'll be favored.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't like. I mean, the line has flipped in Green Bay in week 1. That's one I have. They won't be favored at Baltimore. I don't think they'll be favored at Kansas City. They'll be favored at home Monday night versus Tampa Bay, but like that's a game that I think is a 50-50 game.
Yeah.
They'll be favored against Minnesota, hopefully after the bye week, but that's a 50-50 game. Will they be favored on the road at Washington? I don't know. That's a 50-50 game. At Philadelphia, they won't be favored. That's a 50-50 game. Los Angeles on the road. It's Matthew Stafford. Like,
You're just gonna
the
casually
back.
skip over Green Bay on Thanksgiving?
No, like I'll include that, but I feel I don't know. And then the other one was Minnesota. So Minnesota
Yeah.
at Los Angeles, Green Bay on Thanksgiving, that's 3. Philadelphia, Washington, Minnesota, that's 6. Tampa Bay, Kansas City, Baltimore is 9. So 10. So yeah, so there's like 10 50-50 games.
Yeah. And you win
Yeah,
half of those. You win like 80%
That's
of the
5.
other games. 6 out of your 7, let's say.
Yeah.
That's 11.
Yeah.
Boom.
All right. Sim to playoffs. Let's go, guys.
Yeah, I don't know. I probably feel better about the Rams game than the Packers game, and that's probably just like the Thanksgiving luck just like lingering.
But but it's also like that's Sunday, December 14th. You know, I don't even know what I'm having for breakfast
Yeah.
tomorrow. You know,
Yeah. I think like on paper, again, like today, like yes. Like I just feel like, oh, that's a solid matchup. Like not one that I would like be overly concerned about. But yes, like ask me again, 2 weeks before this game, I might have a different answer.
Yeah.
yeah.
I will be playing Madden. I don't think I will do a mod on the new Madden, if that's what your question is, Dan. But yes, there will be a Madden Sim on Saturday morning prior to the college football games. But it's too early to start inquiring about a mod and the necessity of a mod. Anything else we need to clean up here you guys want to talk about before we get out of here?
Jake Bates. Special teams.
Yeah, we forgot all about segment 4. What are you doing?
That one will only be on Facebook Gaming. We'll be streaming it live on Facebook Gaming.
As we try to diversify our
Sorry.
reach on the internet.
I was trying to kick was the one I was trying to think of.
We're
I don't think we're ever gonna be on kick.
gonna do that on Spotify Live.
Green room.
The locker room app. All the other things we've killed.
That's right. Uncle T Rav, Lions will be the first team in NFL history to win at least 15 games back-to-back years. You heard it here first.
Uncle T Rev, if that happens,
Think for 29 months, by the way.
if the Lions win 15 games, like 1 to 10, how shocked would you be?
7. Is that too low?
7 being like not
10,
very
10
shocked.
being the most.
10 being the most shocked.
I'm surprised
as-
Jeremy didn't go with 8, the old B minus.
That's right.
If they won 15 games back to back.
Yeah, if they won 15 games after all those games that we just listed off.
5.
Dang! Wow. Miko
Because-
feeling confident about this team.
Because
Yeah.
hold on. But because like shocked wouldn't be the first feeling I'd have. It'd be like pure gloating and just like I'd become so annoying to people.
I can tell you this. NFC North fans are already real sick of Lions fans. Like, I've been perusing some of the other sites lately,
Yeah.
and like I know Packers are like they're pumped for this game. It's gonna mean a lot to them.
But see, this is like I don't even think Lions fans are that bad. I just think like everyone else just hates that they don't have their punching bag anymore.
There's definitely some of that, but I mean, come on, let's be
I
honest.
mean, yes,
Miko.
every
There's
fan base
Yeah.
every fan base has those people, right? But like
Yes.
you will never convince me that Lions fans are worse than Vikings fans.
No, I'm with you. I truly believe this, and I know no one really agrees with me, but I think at the heart of it, every fan base is the same. Like
More or
it'll,
less. Yeah.
it'll change a little bit here and there depending on the history of your franchise. Like, yeah, Packer
the
fans are going to be
location.
like a little bit more arrogant because of their history in the past 30 years.
Well, the Bears, like it's a lot of like that's why I say like the Lions, like anything that you feel like is annoying about the Lions right now has been earned recently. Like the gloating and whatever the like it's tied to recency. It's not like us reaching back to a time when black people couldn't play football and being like, remember when we were so good?
Yeah. Like, how many people were on the field at that point? Like, was the forward pass a thing?
Right. Like it's not quite the same.
Right. Full State Farms asked, from 1 to 10, how surprised would you be if the Lions had a losing record?
A losing record?
Yeah. 8, 9
Probably
or
like-
worse.
Probably like a 9.
Yeah,
So
I was gonna say
more
9 or 10.
surprised about that than if they went 15-2?
Oh, I didn't get a chance
Well,
to put a
you're-
number on it.
You
Yeah.
didn't put a number
10.
on that.
10. If they win 15 games, it's a 10. 100%. So I'd be more surprised that they win 15 games than if they were to go 8 and 9.
I guess that's in line with
I-
what your ceiling and floor were.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. And again, this is just looking at things on paper, right? Where it's like if you told me that like by the end of the season, like the only teams that the Lions lost to were the Ravens and Eagles, I'd be like, all right, yeah, I could. That checks out.
They won all those other games?
Yeah, because like
Oh,
if we're gonna
In Kansas City, what does that mean?
yeah,
we
Arrowhead
won that-
been there, done that.
Yeah.
but that's what I'm saying though. Like I don't look at Kansas City the same way I used to look at Kansas City.
Sure. I
Right,
almost feel
like-
like they should win that game. Like right now. If I had to pick right now, I'd be like, no, Lions should win that.
Like I don't think that's wrong. Like I don't think that's crazy. I think Cincinnati, like again, not saying that these are cakewalks, but it's just like
Oh,
it's
not,
not
like-
like a
Yeah. I don't think Cincinnati's like a big name on there, but like, I mean, that 3-week stretch, like Minnesota, Washington, Philadelphia.
yeah, that's a
2-1. Easy.
Green Bay, Chicago, Baltimore.
2-1. Those are the only 2 losses right there.
All right.
Everything
dude,
else is cake.
that would blow my mind. The way that you guys are talking about Kansas City is so reckless.
It's very reckless.
How was that reckless though?
They were in the Super Bowl. Like, how many?
But
They
They
also
had
went.
seasons.
They also
But
went
we
15
all-
and 2 last year.
But we also watched them. Like, this is not the same Kansas City team. And you're not going to convince me that like I need to like be as concerned about them as I used to be when like that, like if we're talking about like again like the difference between one score games and this that and the other, like Kansas City was a team that was like, hey, like you guys were legit
Yeah.
a couple bounces away from just like being terrible last year. Like you guys weren't always playing good football. You did what Dan Campbell wants this team to do, which is once you get to the dance, that's when you need to play your best football.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about playing this team in the regular season,
Lions didn't do that at all, but Kansas City went to the Super Bowl. So like, it's like Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and also like I can't believe you guys want all these Swifties in your mentions. Like you guys are gonna do that?
You think this is gonna make its way to Swifties? This little podcast?
It could.
It won't.
It could. You have no idea who's watching you at any moment.
No, I do. I have lists. I can see it. I see you all. Don't.
Boy 31, I think Eric
They'll
will
have
put me to
power
shame.
with their anonymity. If I pretend like they don't have anonymity, they won't have power. Travis Kelce's on a mission this year.
Hey,
Last
shout out for him for
season,
calling his shot. That's the only thing I'll say about his like their engagement. Kudos for you for like calling that one.
Wait, for what?
For like him basically being like, hey, like Taylor Swift is my crush, and then like a couple years later, like you're marrying her. Like, hey, great, good on you.
right? Gives us all hope, as long as we're professional Hall of Fame football players.
Austin Mammoth, the answer to that question is 0. I will be participating in 0 of those.
Man,
You guys can do
I
that.
heard-
I mean, again, that's my big thing this season. I'm not trying to yuck people's yum, right? Like if you're excited about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce getting engaged, I'm happy for you. I'm happy for you. I'm happy that matters. I'm happy that means something to you. I'm happy that means something to you.
I'm so curious to see if you carry the same energy all 17 weeks or all 18 weeks of the season.
We'll see.
No one's perfect, Miko. I think that's your answer.
Not a perfect person.
Uncle T Rab, thank you for the 100 bits. Says we are 27-7 in the last 2 years. If we have a losing season, that's more losses than 23 or 24
Combined?
combined.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Only 7 losses in the past 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So even a 9-8 season would be more losses than the previous 2 years combined.
True. I know
What
those
else?
records have nothing to do with this year, though, but yeah.
Everything. They have everything to do.
Sorry,
Same
dang
team.
it. I'm yucking people's yum already. Living in the past, man.
All right. I think it's time to get out of here.
Okay.
Chat, when are we going to be live next? Your preview show probably not going to be live. Is it going to be on YouTube? Are you planning on recording video? Or are you still not sure?
We are going to record video. I'm not sure if we're going to upload the entire podcast.
Okay.
Because that's a lot of long form content to be on the YouTube channel. And so I'm thinking about, this is like, again, we'll probably try it out this way. I'm probably going to upload like the first half of whatever the podcast is.
Okay. What? I don't know what chat is talking about. First Bite is not going to be live. Midweek Mailbag is not going to be live. So I guess next time for certain is Man Sim Saturday morning. But then once we get into kind of the swing of things with the season, you'll normally have a podcast either Sunday night or Monday night. You'll have a midweek mailbag live on Tuesday, usually mornings. You'll have maybe at some point a preview show. I got to figure out a way
Not
to
this
get
year.
you broadcast.
I'll be
not this year. Okay,
I was
not
gonna
this
say,
year.
It will not. Yeah, I won't even promise people that, like, because
Yeah.
there's some technological
Yeah.
improvements that need to be made. So hopefully 2026.
Yeah, and then you'll get your Saturday Spotify. There was no show, so you should have had a show last week on Spotify from us previewing the 53-man roster cutdown. We did not do a 53-man roster cutdown show afterwards. So if I don't know how much value it would be to go back and listen to a 53 cutdown preview episode, but that should be out there. And if it's not on your Spotify, I think that's a you issue. Let me just double check.
I was gonna pull it up too.
Yeah, no, it's there. Okay. Yep. All right, sweet. All right, so for preview stuff, you won't have anything live on our streams, but you're going to have 2 offerings available to you on the podcast feed. Miko, Morgan, and this week Brandon will have a show. And then we'll have First Bite available to Pride of Detroit direct subscribers, prideofdetroit.com/subscribe to get it there. But until then, guys, enjoy the rest of your week 1 until we actually get to games. Man, maybe one of these, I was going to say maybe we go live for the season opener just for fun. We'll watch along. Let me think on that.
Look who's a Pittsburgh Steeler captain.
Oh, Cameron Hayward. Fellow SB Nation podcaster,
Miles
Cameron
Killebrew.
Hayward.
Miko saw it.
Oh, what?
Miles Killebrew.
There's a lot of connections to all. I don't know who the 4th one was.
Aaron Rodgers and TJ Watt. You want to talk about those 2?
No. Nope.
TJ Watt should be a Detroit Lion if Brad Holmes would get off his ass. No.
All right, y'all. Have a great rest of your Labor Day